What's up, guys? We're live. Donald Trump, Kamala Harris 2024 election results live. This is it, guys. We've been working hard to get Donald Trump back in the office, and it's all coming down to the wire. We're starting to get results already coming in. What's up, Mary? What's up, Mary? Placence. What we got? Lita Bowker. Hello from Cedar Creek, Texas. What's going on, everybody? Hey, as you guys start coming in, just say hello and let me know what city or state you guys are watching from. Let's make this a community conversation here, guys. Tonight is the night. We've been working hard for this, guys. Also, if you guys can hear me, please just say something in the comment section down below. We're streaming right now, and I want to make sure you can hear me. I'll be toggling between you guys hearing me and me sharing my computer screen so you can hear what is being actually said coming from my computer. But please, guys, let me know in the comments. Drop a quick like, show your support. Let me know if you guys are able to hear me okay, please. Oh wow, we're getting hammered already. Holy cow. We already got 600 people in here. We've only been live for like a minute. Trump, yes. Okay, we got, oh God, I can't even keep up with you guys. Pearl, I just saw Pearl. Where'd Pearl go? Shoot, Brenda Jackson. Okay. I hope you guys are able to hear. Oh wow, happy birthday. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Today's my birthday. I appreciate you guys. You guys are so amazing. I love you guys. We already got 700 people. We gained another 100 people in the last 10 seconds. Crazy. Let me unmute the screen, and I hope you guys are able to hear what's on the screen. Let me know if you guys are able to hear this.
Biden won this in 2020. Hillary Clinton won this in 2016. Why am I highlighting this county? Let me move the map over again. Center County. This is Penn State. This is Happy Valley. This is a university county. The Democrats should be on top right now. Again, there's 68% of the vote in. They could still catch up, but Trump is on top right now. I want to go back to Eastern PA again, which has changed because a lot of people from New York and New Jersey have moved to the eastern portion of the state. We're talking about Northampton. This is one of those bellwethers, Savannah, you were talking about. It almost always picks the winner going back to like the Kennedy years, I think. Trump won it in 2016. Biden won it in 2020. Right now, Trump's on top. 73% of the vote is in, so there's still vote out. Those things could change. Again, it's still early. We're not calling these counties as well. I want to zoom in here. This is Berks County. I'm going to zoom in. Reading, PA. This is a city where Hispanics are the majority here. 92% of the vote is in. Trump is up at 56. It's not a huge surprise, but what it shows is that he's overperforming. He won this county in 2016 and 2020, and tonight he's overperforming. Again, some of that vote is still out, but we're watching that. Finally, I want to look at Scranton right here. Okay, Lackawanna County. Republicans thought they maybe had a chance in Scranton at least to peel away some of the votes there. Again, this is where Joe Biden was from. People wondered if he got the friends and family discount there with voters. She's underperforming tonight. 51% right now. Biden was at 53. In a state where it could be determined by 40,000 votes, 80,000 votes, every little bit matters. If they're looking at the map right now and you're a Republican, you're probably feeling a little bit better. But again, I just want to say it's still so early in the night and there's still a lot of vote out. Philadelphia County, just because this was brought up on the set earlier, 62% of the vote is in. Biden was at 81. She's at 77. A lot of the vote is still out. But again, she wants to be in the same high watermarks where Biden is, guys.
Yeah, Mark Lauder was just here. You know, you staffed Vice President Pence, and you're obviously a longtime Republican operative. You think there's not enough vote for her to make up that margin?
Well, there's still a lot out there. I'm just like, all of these things start to add up. It's like death by 1,000 cuts. And so if you drop 40,000 votes in this state, maybe 6,000 or county, this 6,000 in another, next thing you know, you run out of options. I'll leave it to the brilliant minds in the decision desk to figure out when that happens. I'm not nearly that good at math, but it's starting to look a little more encouraging. And when you see the Latino vote come in, when you see some of the closing of the gap with the young voters, it's starting to add up.
Well, let me just jump in on that because there are several places, and we're starting to now at this point in the night get some trends across battlegrounds when it comes to exit polling with all the necessary caveats that you have heard by now. And there's a few places where former President Trump is making improvements from his performance 4 years ago. It is Latino voters, as you talk about, Mark. It is voters under 30, as you talk about. It is independents. He doesn't mean he's winning them, but he's doing better than he was 4 years ago. Here's where her improvement is, and this is interesting. It's with seniors. It's with voters over the age of 65, and we're starting to see that trend for her.
You pointed to me when you said
no,
seniors.
oh my gosh, Savannah,
and I just want to let everyone know that we noticed.
It deflected off your shoulder.
To full disclosure, we talked about it in the commercial break like 2 hours ago, so it was more of a callback to something.
Hey Hey guys, I hope you guys are not getting too much of an echo. Let me know if you guys are getting an echo here. If you are, I just want to know. I'm just trying to work on my audio here. I want to make sure that this experience is as good for you guys as it is for me. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Like, I literally, my wife took me out to dinner for my birthday just now. We literally just got back home, so I would have been on sooner, but we were out celebrating, blowing out candles and whatnot. But guys, this is crazy. Like, we have been working hard for the whole year trying to get Donald Trump in the best position possible. The media hasn't necessarily been showing Donald Trump a whole lot of love, but I think we've been doing our part. We've been educating the community. We've been educating the world. It's crazy because we have so many people from around the world that watch the channel. Comment down below where you guys are watching from. We routinely get people watching the show from Netherlands, from Europe, from Australia, from Canada. It's wild. I get people from Africa, like all parts of Europe, watching the show. It's literally amazing the reach that we have. And I can't do this without you. I just want to just say personally, thank you to all of you guys out here. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for the buying the team coffees and all that stuff. You guys are absolutely amazing. Tonight is the night. Tonight is the night. Donald Trump said, make it too big to rig. I think that is exactly what's happening. Oh, wow. Ride Data 4. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Happy birthday. Awesome, man. You are amazing. Appreciate you, Rad Dad. But yeah, guys, this is literally what Trump has been talking about. You guys, I don't know if you saw my previous video I dropped earlier this morning, actually, when the news broke that there were voting machines that were offline. There were voting outages in, you guessed it, Pennsylvania, one of the biggest swing states that Donald Trump needs to win. Really, more, to be honest with you, is one of the biggest swing states that both candidates, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, need in order to win this thing. So I've been on it since early this morning. But one thing I do want to show you guys, I've been watching this here, and what we can see here is the presidential results. When I first started looking at this, it was like Harris at like 80 and Donald Trump was at 170. Harris is now over at 112, but Donald Trump is sitting at 210. Very good sign. Now, keep in mind that not all states have had 100% of the the votes counted yet. So Donald Trump is in a very good position right now, but I don't want to get our hopes up yet. If you know someone who is in line, don't tell make sure no one gets out of line. If you are watching this, I don't know, are you guys watching from home? Where are you guys watching the stream from? If you are watching from home, or if you're watching from the line on your phone, please do not get out of line, guys. We need your vote. I swear on everything that we hold dear, we need your votes. Pennsylvania ended up submitting a request to extend the voting hours 2 hours because they had a voting machine outage due to some software problem. I hope they got it fixed. Does anybody know if Pennsylvania got the software problem fixed with the voting machines? So anyway, we need the votes. We need the votes. Obviously on the West Coast, you guys are is it 3? Or I don't know if the West Coast is 3 or 4 hours behind us. If we're on the East Coast, I forget if it's 3 or 4 hours. You guys can let me know. But the polls are coming to a close, and if not already, but yeah, Trump is in a good position so far, but we got to hold this thing. We got to hold this thing.
In this county, there are 156 precincts in Gwinnett County. What they're dropping off right now, you see these purple bags here. Those are provisional ballots, in addition to a lot of blue bags. And the blue bags, I'm told, have official election material that had to be returned. Pamphlets, things that sort of gave directions to the election workers, all of that stuff coming in now. It's coming in waves. The first wave of stuff that was brought in from precinct captains on were the memory cards with the vote. That's something that election workers tell me is a thing that's changed over the years. They said they used to get everything, the election materials that had to be returned, provisional ballots, and the memory cards with the votes all at once. And because it took a while to clean up, it would take a little longer for those memory cards to come in. Now they get the memory cards first, then the rest of the materials. The memory cards, they're actually in all these little bags. You see them unzipping there. Those are from 156 different precincts. Each precinct has at least 2 memory cards that have the vote count from today on them. They go in here, they get processed, and they go out to the public. So they're still deep in that process right now. But let's go again to the back, because this is where we see a lot of activity happening on and off, whether it's the early votes being processed and scanned and tabulated, or mail-in ballots being opened and sorted, or provisional ballots being reviewed. So remember, the thing that
this is a scary part for me. Like, I don't know about you guys, but anytime I hear, about this back office talk, it always makes me worry about who's really counting the ballots and making sure that everybody's being, legitimate on the up and up with the ballots, making sure none of the ballots catch fire or wind up missing. You know what I'm saying? Because specifically with the Pennsylvania ballots earlier today, the promise to the voters that showed up and casted their vote, whether it was for Donald Trump or Kamala Harris, they were promised that their vote would ultimately be cast later on in the day when the systems got back online. So in the meantime, their printed ballot that could not be scanned at the time because of the software outage with the ballot system was being kept in a locked vault. So we're praying, guys, that the legitimate, folks who work at the election ballot office are doing their jobs and they're honest, and they're going to scan each and every one of those ballots, regardless of who they voted for, properly. So real quick, let's see. We got Super Saiyan Brady from Waynesville. What's going on? We got Kentucky in the house. What's going on? Deborah Pickens. We've got Christopher Lovett, born in Raleigh, lives in Asheville. Awesome. Tucker doesn't drink. Philippines for Trump. We got Euless Carter from North Carolina. What's going on? We've got Erica Abyss watching from home. That's what's up. Just call it Georgia. We got Devin Taylor from Louisiana in the house. That is what's up. Let's see. Danny is claiming Trump 210. So Trump 210. Let's see where we at right now. Let's look at the tab right quick. Trump 210. Let me refresh this and see where we're at now. Trump is still sitting at 210. Kamala Harris came up 1 point from 112 to 113. So we're going to definitely keep an eye on that one there. So let's see here. Pennsylvania, check this out, guys. 62%. Pay very close attention to this here. Let me zoom in just a little bit. I don't want to zoom in on this one. Let me zoom in on the screen. There we go. All right. So what we want to pay very close attention to here is we got Pennsylvania. Donald Trump is up by a good 2.7%, which in all honesty is not that big of a lead. It's a good lead, but it's not that big, because what we got to look at here is the fact that there's 62% of the state reporting. Every one of these counties has to submit their ballot counts. And with 62% reporting, that means there's 38% remaining from the counties that need to be reported. It's anybody's race for Pennsylvania right now. Personally, I just think it's way too early to call it. So I'm going to keep my eye on that one. Georgia's another one. Look at Georgia. But Donald Trump's in a very good position here. Very good. Donald Trump's looking very good for Georgia. Because remember, do you guys remember, did Donald Trump win Georgia back in 2020 against Joe Biden? Daryl Anderson, appreciate my brother. Thank you so much for the love, my friend. Thank you so much for the super chat. Daryl Anderson, appreciate the love, homie. But going back to Georgia, 2020 against Joe Biden, did Donald Trump win that one? Somebody help me out with that one, because I don't remember. I got a feeling Trump lost Georgia. Oh, no, he did. Well, whether he lost Georgia officially or not is up for debate, of course. But remember, Fannie Willis took Donald Trump to court for the Georgia election interference case. How could I forget that? So we know Trump didn't get Georgia last election. So if Donald Trump can get Georgia this time around, and we don't have all these ballots found later, you know what I'm saying? We covered that on previous videos. Then it's a good chance that Trump could win Georgia. So keep in mind, look at that. Georgia's sitting at 90% reporting. Trump's got 51% right now. Kamala Harris is 48.2%. This is a good sign, guys, because let me go ahead and refresh this, because we only have 10% remaining for Georgia. Trump's got a roughly 2.9% lead, almost a 3% lead. If he can get Georgia, Georgia's a big swing state. Why? Well, Georgia is worth 16 electoral votes. Okay. Georgia is definitely a key race. I'm going to refresh this. Keep in mind what the stats are right now. I want to see where we're at. Okay, so I just refreshed it. All right, we're still sitting at 90%. Trump's still sitting roughly 2.9% ahead, with Georgia at 16 electoral votes. But now let's go ahead and compare this one to, let's compare Georgia to the electoral votes of Pennsylvania. Look at that. See, this is why, this is a learning experience for me. I didn't understand the difference between the popular vote and the electoral vote. So basically, you could be winning the popular vote and not win the election. And we've seen this before. What Trump needs to do, what Kamala Harris needs to do in order to become president of the United States, each of the candidates needs to hit 270 electoral votes. The first one to hit that number wins. So what we're looking at here is we're looking at Georgia. I'm optimistic that Trump's going to take this one based on what we're seeing here. I mean, Trump's got almost a 3% lead for Georgia. Pennsylvania has got 19 electoral votes. So that's a lot of votes. That's a lot of votes, right? The thing here is Trump is ahead of Kamala Harris by, 2.5%. So Trump's ahead by 2.5 percentage points, but there's always a caveat, right? But the state of Pennsylvania has only reported 66%. So the question is, how much of the remaining 34% is going to be going to each of the candidates? That is what we got to keep an eye on. This is definitely going to be a very, very close race for Pennsylvania at a minimum.
Didn't, but obviously this is not the return we were looking for. It gives you a little sense of the way that some of those people supporting Kamala Harris are feeling this evening right now. Again, a lot of numbers, a lot of data still to be counted right now, but it's
by the way, if you guys haven't already, take a second, hit the like button for me. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for your support.
are not looking as positive as the Harris campaign had been hoping. It doesn't mean that they still don't have a path, but it does certainly increasingly mean that they'd have to succeed in holding on to that blue wall. Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And frankly, speaking to some people in some of those states that are involved with the Harris campaign, they said that's where they are seeing some concern.
So guys, this is something that we haven't really heard too much about. We really haven't heard that much until recently. We haven't heard the Democrats seem so worried. We're listening to MSNBC. This is a traditionally left-leaning news station, right? So MSNBC is definitely sharing some serious concerns about whether or not the Kamala Harris campaign can really pull through during this time. They're literally, in spite of all of the concerts that they've thrown, they had Oprah Winfrey, they had Cardi B on recently, they had Beyonce come on, and with all these high-profile A-list celebrity endorsements. I don't know if they wanted Diddy to endorse. I don't know if they wanted Diddy's endorsement of Kamala Harris. But honestly, based on all the celebrities that have supported Kamala Harris and actually shown to endorse Kamala Harris, that are also having clear ties with Diddy. I wouldn't be surprised if Diddy would support Kamala Harris as well in terms of an endorsement. Hank L, appreciate you, my friend. Thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you so much for the support, my friend. Thank you. But yeah, so yeah. But again, going back, Meg Thee Stallion, Quavo, Taylor Swift, like all these big name endorsements do not seem to have necessarily stop the bleeding that Kamala Harris needs to stop in order to win this election here. Let's see what they're saying right now. Georgia was another key state. They were showing what was going on behind the scenes with the ballots and whatnot. Let's see where they're at right now.
High-speed tabulators in this entire facility, and they went through and emptied them out and restarted the count of some 30,000 ballots. Now, despite that, they say that they're moving along fairly well. When you look around here, you see at each of these stations, the election workers, the election clerks are counting those ballots. And, you know, when you talk to operatives in the state, one thing that they're focused on is what will come from the vote here in Milwaukee. And I talked to a Republican operative who said he's feeling very good about what they're seeing on the Republican side. They say when you look at Dane County, that Vice President Harris is not meeting her marks there. And pointing to Milwaukee, he's saying that the turnout is not meeting what the Democrats should be getting in this area of the state. But when you look at the amount of vote that's here, we know there's about 107,000 ballots that have yet to be counted, and we are still hours away from that being sent over to the county for the public to see. So it's expected to be a long night of counting here in Milwaukee.
All right, so that's Milwaukee, guys. And again, if I'm not mistaken, that was another state that was under heavy scrutiny, heavy fire for some ballot discrepancies. And if I'm not mistaken, there was a whistleblower out of Wisconsin last year that reported some ballot discrepancies and ended facing some jail time. Christopher Lovett says margin of error on 3%. You know what? You're not wrong. You're not wrong. The margin of error of 3% is something that we have to be cognizant of. It really is.
Harris is at 65. Remember, she has to win this state because they lost it for you.
This is North Carolina right now.
And now I want to take you to the Black Belt. Again, these are the counties that there's not a ton of people, but they're largely African-American counties. And I'm going to go to compare this to 2020. And I want you guys to watch these numbers. Remember, the number on the left, it has to be higher. The number on the left has to be higher. So we're going to lock this in. Let's go through here and just watch. Every county, she's underperforming. There's a lot of the vote. There's still some vote out. But in almost every county, she's underperforming. Again, this is the Black Belt, high proportion of African-American voters here, and she's underperforming. Not a population center, but if she wants to win North Carolina, she has to be doing better there. I know you were asking about Virginia. Savannah, let's take a look at Virginia. We haven't called Virginia yet, you know, and if we, just to give you context, the last two elections, it came kind of close to 2016, about 4 percentage points, 4 or 5 percentage points. In 2020, Biden grew that lead much more. It was about 10 points there. Tonight, here's where it's at. 77% of the votes in. There's about a 2% spread. I'm being told by our politics desk, a lot of the vote that is out is still in the Northern Virginia suburbs. This is the Democrats' sort of their sweet spot where they're going to drive up the votes. Also, Richmond County, a lot of African-American voters there, too, that could possibly vote Democratic. But listen, Republicans have been making inroads in there as well. We can take a quick gander. How much time do we have? About a minute? 2 minutes. Now we're going to say goodbye. We'll come back. We'll dig into those northern suburbs in just a minute, Savannah.
Let's do, because, you know, northern suburb resident Chuck Todd says you can't count. You're waiting on that vote. But I want to go to Mark Lauder on this. Also, I think of Washington, D.C., former.
Guys, this is so freaking close. I mean, is anybody else dealing with any kind of anxiety? Like, I am definitely feeling anxious right now. And I keep on hitting refresh to see where we're at. This is just, it's getting to be a little bit much for your boy.
Signs in people's yards where 4 years ago, 8 years ago, you would have never dared put one up there. So I think there was a little more of an emboldened activity, but you know you're not going to win that area. But I think this does point to what we were talking about. We see going on in Philadelphia, which we see going on in some of the other Charlotte areas. She's underperforming in the metro areas, which is where she needs to overperform.
I think when it's all counted, when everything comes in Northern Virginia, and Chuck's not here, so I'm a little nervous. But I think she'll end up winning Virginia by a comfortable margin. And I think when you actually analyze the data, what you're going to see is there was more enthusiasm in the rural areas of Virginia than there was for Biden. I mean, I think we need to start saying out loud that, what is different between Joe Biden and Kamala Harris? Everybody thinks they're exactly the same on policies, but one is a woman of color and the other is a white man that everybody was really comfortable with, that were moderates and knew him well and had known him for decades. So I think you're seeing more Trump support in some of the areas where Biden could cut in. And you're not, but Virginia's going to be fine. She's going to win Virginia.
But you might see that maybe in like a Lackawanna County or something.
Guys, I do want to jump in here and I want to share this quick clip with you guys. It looks like they're reporting that Donald Trump has actually taken over Pennsylvania. So let me bring that on for you guys. Take a listen here. Hopefully,
a little bit more than half statewide. That is Trump's lead statewide, but it's very spotty in terms of where you're seeing votes. Oh, there's one more I did want to flag for you. This is Cumberland County, because we do have about 3/4 of the vote in here. Why Cumberland County? Because we don't talk much about it, but there's a lot of population in this region of Pennsylvania. You got Lancaster County, you got York County. Here you got Cumberland County, Carlisle, Pennsylvania's in here. This is actually, you see red right now. This has been a growth area for Democrats. There's a lot of fast-growing suburbs in here. Again, demographically very conducive to the Democratic coalition. Right outside, right across the river from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. So Democrats made gains here in 2020. This was actually a very good performance for Joe Biden. Now you see, with almost 3/4 of the vote in, Trump's a little bit short of that number. That was a bad number for him, and he's a little bit short of it now. But this is the thing to look for. With all of this remaining election day vote still to be counted, is Trump, we just saw this happen in Lackawanna County. Is that going to happen in Cumberland County? Is Trump going to gain enough that he hits that number and surpasses that 2020 number? This is the kind of place where his campaign needs to win back ground that they lost in 2020. This is a big part of why, or a significant part of why, Trump lost Pennsylvania in 2020. So we're going to follow that as it continues to come in.
Wow. Guys, very, very close race. That's all I can say.
We just called California. Now let's go to our battlegrounds. Pennsylvania, too close to call, 11 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock in the West. Same story in Michigan, too close to call at this hour, with about 1/3 of the vote counted there. In Wisconsin, it is too close to call. You knew it would be a tight election. The polls all showed it, and that's certainly being borne out tonight. 60% of the vote in there. In Georgia, it is too close to call, getting closer to that final number there, but the margins are just too close to make a call in that presidential race. Same thing in North Carolina. In fact, it's too early to call. We are still awaiting vote there. In Arizona, let's go out west. We've got two battlegrounds out west. We've got Arizona and Nevada. Polls closed there about a couple of hours ago. Well, 2 hours for Arizona, last hour for Nevada. Both of these too early to call. And Tom Llamas over at the board. And we talk about Arizona. We haven't given its due tonight in Maricopa County. And don't forget, the great county of Pima County, home to Tucson, Arizona.
And give some credit to Arizona. Already 50% of the vote is in. I mean, they're doing their job there. So congrats to them. Maricopa County, this is the big swing county that we're going to be watching here. This is going to be about 60% of the vote in the state of Arizona. So important. If you want to win Arizona, you got to win Maricopa. You can see Trump won it in 2016. Biden won it in 2020. Tonight, with 50% in, Kamala Harris is on top right now. Phoenix, one of the 5th largest city in the country, one of the fastest growing areas in the country. Something else interesting about Maricopa, it's not so much people from other states moving there for the jobs. It's people from all over Arizona moving to this area. You have Mesa, Tempe, Scottsdale, a lot of growth there. We're going to go to this other county here, Pima County. Savannah, you've heard of this county? Maybe, maybe not. 50% of it is in. This is Tucson. This is a Democratic stronghold, but it's not like Cambridge, Massachusetts, right? It's not 60-40 split. It sometimes is, but not really. Tonight, she's doing well. She's turning out the vote there, about 30% Hispanic in Pima County as well. It's on the border. Just next door to Pima is Yuma. Now, this is majority Hispanic, an interesting county, but this is a place where Republicans can run up the score. Trump overperforming right now, only 35% of the vote is in. Arizona, still very, very early, 11 electoral votes. As we get information, we'll sort of dissect it and figure it out, but it's going to be a while before we call Arizona, Savannah, as you know.
All right. Thank you, Tom. We got our panel here. We got Chuck. We got Savannah Sellers over here. Chuck, what are you making of what we're seeing, what the trend lines are?
There's a reason why there's anxiety in the Harris camp and growing enthusiasm and optimism. I mean, all the trend lines, this looks a lot more like 2016 to me than it does 2020. And you're seeing whether it's rural turnout surging up, we've had to up our projection of total turnout in Georgia than what we saw. And as we'd been saying, and we'd seen this, higher turnout was always going to be better for Trump. Not, there's always been this pre-Trump era conventional wisdom used to be Democrats would perform better, but he has the sort of the occasional voter. And it looks like, and we're actually even seeing evidence of what I call these shotgun Trump voters. They come in, they vote Trump, and they leave because there's about 100,000 vote gap. I mean, the Democratic Senate candidates in the blue wall are all in better shape right now than Harris.
And did Republicans crack the code of early voting and finally glomming onto that, even though Donald Trump is sending a separate message?
Well, one might argue now, if you look at the 3 Trump elections, 1, he obsessively made sure people didn't vote early. 2, he didn't. 1 was at 16, and then it's this one. So you may be onto something, but I do think the bigger story is their ability to expand the electorate. He used to have a ceiling of about 47, 48. That's not the case tonight. He expanded it another point or 2. That's significant. As we know, in a razor-thin environment, even if you're just adding 50,000 to your voter rolls, well, that's the difference between winning and losing. Half the blue wall. I heard your Dallas Cowboys thing. I mean, there you go, right?
Can you do it again?
Yeah, I mean,
it also works for Lambeau Field. That the last 4, literally,
a better stadium to pick. You don't want to have losing team.
Yeah. Oh my
God.
Here we go. No, just that our last election was decided by 80,000 voters in 4 states that would fill.
But can we also remember one other thing here? Because she was trying to do something as a sitting vice president that had never been done before. Succeed an unpopular president. Okay. Hubert Humphrey tried to do this, and he came 1 percentage point short. It was a very close election. The electoral vote wasn't close, but it was a very close election. But he came up short. Al Gore tried to do this. While Bill Clinton's presidency was popular, Bill Clinton, the individual, was not. We all know he came up 537 votes short, as Lester will tell you over and over again. So the last sitting vice president to win was George H.W. Bush, with an outgoing president that had a 60+ approval rating. He was at 41%. I mean, that is, you are asking somebody to overperform in a way that we may find out was politically impossible.
This sounds a little bit like a postmortem, so I want to make sure we
No, and I don't think we're there.
We have not called.
And let me give you the view from the Harris campaign.
And by the way, they know if they win, it's going to be like this. Like their path is razor thin.
That's exactly what they're saying. There's this new memo that is out now from the chair of the Harris campaign that was sent to staffers, obtained by our Monica Alba and our team that covers the Harris camp. And this is exactly the point, right? Which is why I wanted to jump in here on this. She says they say that the closeness of this race is what we prepared for all along. They still see data trickling in from Sunbelt, but all along they knew it was going to be blue wall. I mean, listen, to a degree, of course, this is what they're going to say, but they say they think they're still feeling good about Pennsylvania, overperforming turnout in Philadelphia and some of these areas. In Michigan, they say there's still a lot of vote to come in. In Wisconsin, there's still a lot of vote remaining. General O'Malley Dillon says in this memo, we've been saying for weeks this race may not be
called tonight. I'm going to interrupt here because we do have an NBC News projection in the state of Oregon. NBC News projects that Kamala Harris will win in Oregon when the votes are counted. Here's where there's the breakdown right now. 220,000 vote difference, 45% of the vote in, but again, Kamala Harris, the projected winner there. In our road to 270, you see it there on the screen, 214 for Donald Trump, Harris with 153. The big prizes, still no calls. We continue to wait.
Interesting that memo is focusing on the blue wall. That's all but saying they're not expecting a North Carolina victory or Georgia. Or
those are 2 states. I'm just looking at this on my computer. I don't see either of those 2 states mentioned here. They do talk about Nevada and Arizona. It's going to be a bit, but the bottom line is they feel like this race is not going to come into focus until the early morning hours.
The fascinating thing about what Hallie just read, Chuck says this feels like 2016. That's almost verbatim a memo that we got in 2016 saying we're focused on the blue wall. Everyone's focused on the blue wall. No one panic. And we have a lot more vote to count. So I want to be very cautious in saying this. But tonally, it is fascinating that is the message that they're sending.
Well, not for nothing. They did their last rally, Kamala Harris in Philadelphia on the
whole
eve
last
of
day.
the election.
All she did was focus on
Which is
PA.
exactly what
They had their eye on the
did in
ball. I mean, you
2016.
can't say, right, they didn't do that in 2016, right? She was doing Arizona, she was doing Texas, and she
But
sort
the
of,
night before was in Philly.
true, but they sort of didn't do the blue one. To their credit, I mean,
Yeah.
she lived in Pennsylvania, but I'll tell you this, we'll see. There's probably a lot of people wondering who should be the running mate? Who should be on this Democratic
We
ticket?
had that discussion. It was
Yeah.
that some people will, if
It'll
she
be-
loses Pennsylvania, there'll be a lot
And if
of,
that's the only state, right?
Yeah.
That'll be
If-
the hand wring.
but because Josh Shapiro is a very popular
Right.
Democratic governor who was on the short list for vice president. Let's bring Savannah Sellers into this. I mean, what are you reading out of the exit polls? Are you seeing any trend lines? I know you've got your brief. You really look at young voters and you've got your finger on the pulse there. What stands out?
Absolutely. I'll start with some numbers and then give you some anecdotal information. First, let's talk about first-time voters. This is not just young voters, but that's 57% of these first-time voters are under the age of 30. They are breaking for Trump. That is a major reversal from 2020. 53% for Trump right now, 46% for Harris back in 2020.
Now I want to jump in real quick, guys. It looks like we got some news recently from CBS, basically saying that we probably won't know the results of Pennsylvania tonight, and the delay does not necessarily mean that anything nefarious is happening. So this is what they're telling us. I hope they're telling us the truth. Let me share this with you guys, and let's see what they're saying here. Third world countries get their results on election night, but Pennsylvania can't figure it out, and we're supposed to believe everything is fine. You guys, you tell me if you believe Pennsylvania. Let's see what they're saying
Want
here.
to turn now to Cecilia Vega, because Cecilia, I know you did some reporting in Pennsylvania. What are we learning about what may be happening in the Keystone State?
Yeah, we're just back from a reporting trip there. Look, this is the Holy Grail. Margaret said it at the top of the show with its 19 electoral college votes. And I think, Nora, to understand the significance of Pennsylvania, all you got to do is look back to the final day of campaigning. Both candidates there, Donald Trump telling everybody, if we win Pennsylvania, we'll win this whole ball of wax. Kamala Harris ending her final rally on the steps of the famous Rocky Steps there. But look, Al Schmidt, the Secretary of State, told me we are probably not going to know the results from Pennsylvania tonight. Delay does not mean anything nefarious is happening. Pack your patience, you said at the top.
What do you guys think about that? Do you think that this delay for the results of Pennsylvania means that, hey, they're just counting votes, it's nothing to worry about? Or do you think that there's some hanky-panky going on there? You guys let me know what you think on that one. Seriously, guys. I mean, this is crazy. This is literally crazy.
62%, Harris 36%. First-time women, the gap is less here. Trump 46%, Harris 53%.
Yeah,
so that
I mean-
young men turnout is real.
Well, people who thought that young women would be voting in droves for Kamala Harris, especially because of reproductive rights. I mean, that exit poll does not suggest that.
Absolutely.
It doesn't, and this goes back to
Just checking the comments. Let's see. Pennsylvania cannot afford Harris-Walz government. Let's see. Anthony Russo says we need more time to cheat. I think Kamala Harris, nothing but a distraction from the truth of what's really going on. Nothing happens for no reason. Dems try to cheat again. Just Trump was killing it. Yes, Pennsylvania. Thank you guys so much for the birthday wishes. You guys are just freaking awesome. Let's get back into it here. Let's see.
Thing to be watching for tonight. Again, it is 11:11 Eastern time, but there's still plenty of vote to come
I
in.
want to go to Tom right now. Tom, I'm looking at Wisconsin. Looks like 62% of the vote in there. You're picking up some things. Sharon, what?
Yeah, too close to call right now. Trump on top 50%. The difference is 39,000. Remember, the last two elections in Wisconsin, presidential elections, 20,000 votes was the difference between both candidates here. We want to go back to Madison, the capital of Wisconsin, Dane County. This is also the site of the University of Wisconsin as well. 92% of the vote in. Harris doing a little better than when we last checked in with her. But again, she's slightly underperforming Biden. She still has time to catch up. There's still 8% of the vote that's out. We actually know exactly how much of the vote is out. About 30,000 votes remain there. So maybe she picks up the margins there. We also want to talk about Milwaukee. This is the biggest population center in the entire state of Wisconsin. Right now, 54% of the vote is in. So a lot of that vote is still out. It's probably going to be a little bit later. till we can call Milwaukee by itself. Biden was at 69. She's down about 2 to 3 points. Again, this would be concerning for Democrats. But look, there's still a lot of vote out in Milwaukee. Door County, if you've been following the presidential race at all, everyone's been talking about Door County in Wisconsin. It's this peninsula that shoots out into Lake Michigan. The last 6 statewide elections, presidential elections, I should say, they've picked the winner. This is a good sign for Kamala Harris. She's on top there, overperforming Biden just slightly. 95% of the vote is in. Again, Door, if we bring it out to past elections, it almost always picks the winner in the state of Wisconsin. So that's a good sign for her because it's a bellwether. I do want to check in some of these Democratic strongholds. Eau Claire, 92% in, kind of performing at the same level as Biden. That's good news for her. She wants to keep it there. We don't have any data there. What else we have? I think here in La Crosse, this is another Democratic stronghold, 92% in. Biden was at 53. She's 55, I should say. She's slightly underperforming. So listen, still a lot of vote. Let me see how much vote is still out. Still about 40% of the vote. But here's what's tough for Democrats in Wisconsin. Of the battleground states, each of those blue wall states is different. But of all the battleground states, Wisconsin is the widest. So they can drive up the margins with at least African-American voters and some Latino voters that are going to stay loyal to the Democrats in this election. What they can do, there's about 100,000 college students in the state of Wisconsin, and they usually fare better, much better with those university students. We're going to have to wait and see, as we say right there, too close to call.
All right, we got a big projection to give right here. This is the Ohio Senate race. It was a hotly contested race. Bernie Moreno, the car dealer, Republican, will pick up that seat, unseating the incumbent Sherrod Brown. This is quite a moment because, barring any unforeseen circumstances, it appears that Republicans, with that victory, will take control of the United States.
All right, so they're talking about Senate right now. What I do, though, I want to look at where we're at on the race, and I'm going to get honest with you guys. This looks alarming to me. You guys remember where we were just a moment ago, right? Donald Trump had this massive lead on Kamala Harris, and she's running up quickly. And I don't know what to say on that one. I don't know what to say on that one. Look, 179, Trump's ahead, 214. We need to get to 270 points for the electoral votes, guys. We're still waiting on a lot of states. Pennsylvania's at 75% reporting. They were at 66%. So we're going to see what happens there. Georgia is at 90% reporting. So Donald Trump, he's up. Kamala's catching up a little bit. Hold on. 48.3, 50.4. No, Trump has still got a pretty good lead on Kamala compared to where we saw her, where we saw them before. So she's not catching up on Georgia. So that could be an extra 16 points for Donald Trump, putting him at like 230 if he gets Georgia. But, we got 90% reporting, so I don't want to jump the gun and say anything yet. It's not guaranteed at all. Look at North Carolina, guys. Trump is ahead with North Carolina, so this is a good sign. And he's ahead by, 2.7%. So if Trump can get, let me get my calculator. If Trump can get Georgia, that'll be 214. I don't think you guys can see my calculator, but I'm doing the math over here. If Trump can get Georgia, that'll be an extra 16 points. That puts him at 230. If he could get North Carolina, that's another 16 points because he is up by 2.7% with 89% of the state reporting already. Hypothetically, if he gets the next 16 points out of North Carolina, that puts him at 246 points. If he can get Pennsylvania, we still got 75%. That's 25% remaining for the state of Pennsylvania. That's concerning. And I hate the fact that they came out saying, like, we're probably not going to get an answer tonight. But the good news is Trump is ahead by, 47.9. Let's just call it 48, 49, 50, 51.1. So he's ahead by 3.2 points for the state of Pennsylvania. With 75% reporting, I think it's possible he could take Pennsylvania. I don't want to say he will or he won't because I don't know. Nobody knows yet. But if he did get Pennsylvania too, let me add 19 points to the 19. Okay. So that puts him at 265. So if he got Georgia, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania, then Trump would move from 230 to 265. That's a big help. That's a big help. At that point, all he would need is 5 points and he got to 270. So with that being said, we got Trump ahead over here at Michigan. Trump's ahead on Michigan, but only 31% reporting. So it's not even half the state. So we don't even know what the hell is going to happen with Michigan. But the good thing is that he is ahead by a good margin. That's a pretty good margin. It's not as big as I would like to see, but it's a good margin. 46, let me see, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52. So Trump is ahead by 6.6 percentage points for Michigan. Wisconsin, Trump is ahead. He's ahead by roughly 3 percentage points with 65% reporting. Minnesota, you're scaring me, guys. Only 16% reporting, but look at that, guys. A massive 61% to 36.9%. But again, only 16% reporting. I don't even know what to say about that one. I like the big gap that Trump has here, but it's absolutely too early to call on that. But look at that, guys. Remember, if he only got, I'm saying only like it's easy, right? But if Trump gets Georgia, if Trump gets, this just changed. Look, if Trump gets Georgia, that's the 16 points. If you got the North Carolina, if you got the PA, that puts him at 265. Guys, North Carolina just flipped. It was a like this what do you call it? This maroon color. It was like burgundy. Now North Carolina is saying it's red. Did y'all notice that? Let me know in the chat, guys. Don't get me hyped up here. I'm getting amped up, yo. North Carolina just turned red, and according to the key down here, if it's blue, that means it's a state that's been won. So they're claiming Trump just won North Carolina. Let me see if I can get that to be validated anywhere.
Of declaring victory early. We all remember him doing exactly that in 2020 when so much of the vote remained to be counted. He has refused to take an early declaration of victory off the table, and it's our understanding now that conversations are underway for him to make some kind of address here tonight, regardless of where we are on the path to 270 votes.
All right, Garrett, thank you so much. And we're joined now by podcast hosts John Lovett and Dan Pfeiffer, both White House veterans. I believe we have them right now. Oh, not yet. We're going to go to, that they're coming up.
We're going to go to Peter Alexander.
Peter Alexander, get the view from the Harris headquarters. It sounds like Donald Trump is talking about coming out and saying something. What are you hearing from the Harris campaign?
That's 3,000 votes, less than that.
Yeah, well, I always defer to the Pod Save America guys. If they want to go, you let me know when they're ready. But we are waiting to hear, of course, from Kamala Harris at some point over the course of this evening. No indication when that would happen. Some early indications that might happen in the course of this hour. No confirmation on that at this time. We'll keep you posted as we know. I will tell you, though, in the course of the last 15 minutes, NBC News did obtain a memo that was sent out by the chair of the Harris campaign, Jen O'Malley Dillon, the woman who orchestrated Joe Biden's victory in 2020. This was sent to staff, and it gives you a sense of where they are heading into this evening. They expect nothing will be determined until late into the night, and certainly they say they're going to be at this again tomorrow. But as she notes in this memo, again, she says,
guys,
that they have always
we got good news here. We got good news here. Hang on 1 second. Let me switch over. Check this out.
North Carolina getting called. I'm watching Pennsylvania closely now. I'm watching Georgia closely now. Again,
look at this.
Of all the votes,
Trump wins North Carolina. I told you guys.
He's got almost 3 points up. Pennsylvania, just over 3/4 of the vote now tallied. Trump has, and right now we're looking at just about a 3-point lead out of PA as well. So Trump has leads in 2 absolutely crucial states. And I'm not even mentioning the fact that he has leads right now in Wisconsin. 66% of the votes in. Right now, Trump has about a 3-point advantage there. Michigan, fewer of those votes counted. About a third of them are in so far. But Donald Trump right now with a sizable lead over Kamala Harris. That one looking like it's just over a 6-point advantage. We go over to Arizona. It's very possible we don't hear any more results in from them for the rest of the night. They've been stuck at 50%. Nonetheless, that's at a dead tie right now. It's very possible, Andy, the way this is playing out, though, we might not need to worry about Arizona. Right. We're going to keep an eye specifically right now on Georgia and PA, now that North Carolina's been called.
Wow.
Breakdown of all
Wow.
to come. And of course, North Carolina, Georgia, insurmountable leads. In Pennsylvania, Wisconsin,
Wow.
and Michigan might be too close to call at this point, just based on the margin there. All right, Austin, we're going to check back in with you in just a little bit.
Yo, guys, I'm not trying to amp you up. I'm not trying to get anybody's hopes up here, guys. I'm not trying to get anybody's hopes up.
Excitement growing.
You know, we still have to wait and see what's going to happen. Absolutely, we have to wait and see what's going to happen. But Trump just took North Carolina. That's a big freaking win. North Carolina was one of those big swing states, and it was worth 16 points. We just did the math. So, you know, that was huge. That was huge. I didn't mean to zoom in on. I hate zooming in on this map. All right, so let me get my calculator back out. All right, so we got we got North Carolina. Yay! We got North Carolina. All right, so Trump's sitting at 230. If he gets Georgia, which it looks like he could get Georgia. I don't want to say he will, but Trump's got a good that's a 2.7% lead on Georgia, guys. So if he gets Georgia, that puts us at another plus 16. So then that will put Trump at 246. If Trump can walk away with Pennsylvania, Trump's got I don't know, 48, 49, 50, 51. He's got 2.3%. Wait. Where was I? Pennsylvania? All right. 48, 49, 50, 51. He's got a 3.2% lead on Pennsylvania. 3.3% lead on Pennsylvania. That would be another 19 points for Trump. Then that will put him at 265. And look at this, guys. Like I said to you guys before, all we got to do is get 5 points after the 265. So if Trump gets Michigan, that's 15 points. If Trump gets Wisconsin, that's 10 points. If Trump gets Minnesota, that's 10 points. Any one of these states, in addition to Georgia and Pennsylvania, will give Trump the win. Like I said, I'm not trying to hype you guys up. I'm just saying, I'm just looking at the math here because it is what it is. It is what it is. So, oh, my bad. I wasn't even sharing my screen. My bad. I'm doing too much here. Let me see. What are you guys saying here? Are you guys following the math that I'm saying? Great job, North Carolina. Trump won Georgia. Hey, it's all about the Benjamins, baby, who's saying, how many of you guys think Trump won Georgia already? Because I've seen that comment in here a few times, but I don't see that Trump has won Georgia yet. Is anybody's comment, guys? Anybody seeing Trump won Georgia? Because I don't see that. That's all I'm saying. I just don't see it yet. It looks like 91% is reported. North Carolina reported, and this was interesting. North Carolina is claiming to have been a Trump win, even though only 89% is reported. So I don't know how they do that, but we just heard from the news from Fox confirming what we're seeing here, that Trump won North Carolina. So if 89% has been reported for Trump, if 89% of North Carolina voters ballots have been counted already for North Carolina, and they're saying Trump won, and he's got a 2.7% spread, then Georgia with a I'm struggling with my maths. 2.7, 9, 10, 11. Trump's got a 2.8% spread on Georgia with 91% reported. If that's the case, you would think Georgia would have been like, hey, Trump won Georgia too. But I don't see that yet. Does that make sense? I might just be nerding out here with the stats, but Okay. Anyway, let's see what MSNBC is talking about.
Harris is running behind in these urban areas by 1 or 2 points compared to where President Biden performed. You look at that coupled with Donald Trump's overperformance with Hispanic voters, with young voters. I don't think they have a lot to hang their hat on. It's not over. There's votes to be counted. We should point out that these blue wall states tend to be red mirage. You know, they go red and then they tend to go, the race narrows as these big urban areas come in later. But when you just look at the underperformance of Kamala Harris and the overperformance of Trump, it's going to be pretty hard, I think, for her to catch him.
Yeah, the Harris team's
Ooh, y'all heard that, right?
Overperformed in Philadelphia. Does that give you pause?
I don't see where they're saying that. Now they're looking, I'm sure, at precinct analysis, and we're looking at a county total. So we should give that caveat. But, you know, Joe Biden got 80% of the vote in Philadelphia County, and she's not running at 80%. I think last I looked, was at 70%.
I'm sorry, I'm getting tired, guys.
So that's a pretty significant difference when a race is as close as it is.
All right, Sarah and Mike, thanks to both of you. Tom Yamas has more from the big board on Georgia.
Yeah, Georgia, but I also want to give us just sort of a vibe check of where we are. It is still very early in the night.
Can't wait for them to talk about
even though
Georgia
people
now.
may be claiming they've won certain states yet, we still haven't called any of the battlegrounds here at NBC News. And a reminder, Harris's easiest path is to hold the blue wall. If she wins Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, remember, she gets to the White House. Even if she loses Georgia, North Carolina, the entire Sun Belt, she still gets there. Let's talk about Georgia, though. Let's find out where we are there in the Peach State. Still too close to call for NBC News right now. 91% of the vote is in, but let's talk about where the vote remains. Look at, okay, the giant circles, remember those giant bubbles? That's the vote that still is outstanding. We're still waiting on this vote to be counted. And we know the exact number, or we can estimate the exact number. We think it's going to be about 487,000 votes. There's still almost 500,000 votes out in Georgia, still up for grabs here. Let's make some comparisons here. Remember, I told you Harris has to drive up the vote in the Atlanta metro area. 50% of the vote is going to come from this area right here. First county, Cobb County, she's performing just like where Biden is, slightly better. Fulton County, performing a little bit lower, but slightly, and there's still 7% of the vote out in Fulton, where Atlanta is exactly. Gwinnett County, 80%'s in. Look, she's holding the same marks of where Biden was. She's overperforming in Douglas County as we move further south. Look, she's almost exactly where Biden was all around the ring counties of Atlanta. That's good news and overperforming in Rockdale County. But if Democrats wanted to expand the map, we're not seeing that tonight. A place like Cherokee, we're going to see if they could make inroads there just north of Atlanta. It touches those ring counties. Trump was at 68% in 2020. Tonight he's at 69%, and they've almost got all the vote counted there. I want to move down, though, because there is something interesting happening in the Black Belt of Georgia. I was talking to you guys about the Black Belt of North Carolina earlier and how she was underperforming there. Remember, this was Biden's number. This is her number tonight. Watch as we go around here, okay? These are counties where it's a majority African-American, 52%, 50% for Kamala Harris. This is a rural county. Trump is overperforming here. We go to another rural red county, overperforming here. We come down here to Doherty County. She's slightly overperforming Biden there. But again, if she wants to win the state of Georgia, she's got to be doing better than Biden. It seems like she could be doing that in Atlanta. The numbers are good for her right now in the metro region, but it's still really too close for us to call here in Georgia. Guys, I'm going to send it back to you.
Okay, Tom, thank you so much. I want to go to Chuck because Chuck.
Atlanta's not that big. Atlanta is a minority when you look at the whole size, the whole geographical area that covers Georgia. So she can win Atlanta, but not win Georgia. And I think that's what she kind of overlooks. But again, the race is very close. The race is very close. Kevin Barrett says you're watching news that is for her. You're right. I am watching NBC News, and it's typically a left-leaning news site, but I think it's very interesting to listen to both sides. You can glean good information from both sides, and sometimes one side is going to just straight up lie to your face, and I get it. But it's interesting to hear them speak about it, because when they're like showing concern, that's legitimate. When they're showing concern that Kamala Harris is not performing to the level that Joe Biden was in 2020. And then on top of that, you got You got Donald Trump leading a little bit, or, because he's not leading by that much. He's leading by a little bit. That's a good sign for Donald Trump. So I think it's good to pay attention what both sides are doing. You don't want to just get news from one source. I think it's always wise to get counsel. I think it's in the Bible somewhere, to get counsel from multiple sources, and then you ultimately compile that information and you make your own decision from there. But yeah, appreciate the comment there, Kevin. Let's see. Egon Christie says Trump won North Carolina. Appreciate that. Yep, Trump won North Carolina. That was a big win. I think North Carolina was worth like 16 electoral votes. Michael says you got to look at both sides. That's right. CNN is squirming also. They are squirming. I'm not comfortable, guys. I'm gonna just say that I'm not comfortable. There's way too much left for to fall out, and I'm just saying, because like they pulled some mess before. I'm concerned about Pennsylvania. I don't like the fact that we have to wait to find out what's going to happen with Pennsylvania. I wish this stupid software glitch didn't happen earlier today, where they had the voter outages up in Pennsylvania, which is a major swing state. That is concerning. But I think that hopefully a lot of people stayed in line, or at least came back, and the ballots that they put in the locked bin ended up getting submitted and scanned. So that's my concern. Let's see. King Alaha says, Trump says 179 Harris. Wait, Truth says 179 Harris, 230 Trump. So let's look at this for a second here. Wait, what are they saying here? Hold on. What are they saying?
Past 11:30 here in the East. Welcome back to those viewers rejoining us on this exciting night. I'm Lester Holt.
And I'm Savannah Guthrie. Glad you're along with us. This is NBC's election night coverage, and we've started to fill in that map, but those all-important 7 battlegrounds still in gray. We have not called them yet. We've been getting minute-by-minute projections, all leading up to this road to 270, which is the magic number needed to win the White House. So let's go through some of the boards here. This is Pennsylvania at this hour. 79% of the vote in, too close to call. We've talked a lot about the different counties and whether there's enough for Kamala Harris to make up where she's lost in some of the rural areas. Let's go to Michigan, too close to call there as well, but a lot more votes to be counted. In Wisconsin, let's see how much we've got there. About 2/3 of the vote or so, too close to call. In Georgia, we're getting close to a close there, but they do count their votes fast there, and it's 91% in, but we will see what happens. Too close to call. North Carolina, too early to call. We will wait and see what happens there. But again, starting to see 88% of the vote coming in there. Let's go out west. Arizona, too early to call. Polls closed about 2.5 hours ago there. What looks like we have a projected winner. This just came in right now. Okay, North Carolina Donald Trump is the projected winner. You see the margin there, 136,000. So Donald Trump improved on his margin by back of the envelope math, 50,000 votes there in North Carolina. That's going to be a real disappointment for the Kamala Harris campaign. They had hoped that if North Carolina could be clawed back into the blue column, perhaps that would open up other paths for them out west, a Sunbelt path. It is looking like blue wall or bust. That is where it stands right now, 172 electoral votes for Kamala Harris and Donald Trump in the lead right now.
Let's go to Tom right now and talk about now what this does to Kamala Harris's paths to victory.
Yeah, let's show you real quick how Trump wins, right? How we project that he wins. Robinson right now, 64.9%, 30% in. You can see how Trump's overperforming here. As we go along these rural counties, you can see Trump's numbers are increasing. 63 4 years ago, 66 tonight. We'll keep moving along here. 50%, 53%. So Lester, you asked, how does this affect him in the race for president? Let's go back out to our big board here, the road to 270. When we started out tonight, right, the paths to victory here, Trump had 10, Harris has 9. That's because we just called North Carolina. We can't even remove it anymore. this number before we called North Carolina, Harris had more paths than Trump did. But this is essentially where we started the night. This is the way it ended in 2020, right? He won North Carolina. President Biden had won the rest of the battleground states. But this gives the Republicans and former President Trump some hope. We now move to Georgia. We're going to be looking at the vote in Georgia. But as Chuck mentioned, very, very close in Georgia. And we're going to be waiting on that vote, the full vote to come out of Atlanta in those ring counties right now.
What is this
But a win-win
226,
for former President
236?
Trump. It's the first battleground we're calling tonight.
All right, Tom, thanks very much.
Remember, there was some late polling in this state that came just over the weekend that suggested that perhaps Kamala Harris was surging in North Carolina, that maybe she was making gains among some of these voters. That is clearly not turning out to be the case. That said, you've seen the reporting from her campaign that they are looking at the all-important blue wall. Of course, the question is, if Georgia goes, and you and Chuck were just talking about Georgia, but if Georgia does end up in the red column, it is Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania.
Well, to that point, the Secretary of State in Georgia, Brad Raffensperger, who people are familiar with from the last election, has said on the record that Trump has an insurmountable lead in Georgia with the number of votes outstanding. So he's the Secretary of State. I think he knows what he's speaking of, but we will continue to watch.
I think Trump's going to take Georgia, but I'm waiting for them to officially say it.
State of Virginia. This call coming a little later than many people might have expected, but Kamala Harris will win the 13 electoral votes in Virginia. There's a breakdown right now. 134,000 vote difference, 84% of the vote in. That, of course, goes into the Harris column. Here's where that leaves us in the road to 270. Trump with 230 now, 40 from his goal. Harris with 185 electoral votes.
Okay, let's bring Jen Psaki in, former Biden White House press secretary, and Mark Lauder, who was joining us earlier. Jen,
anybody else nervous?
To you. I mean, look, it's getting to be a narrower path for Kamala Harris, no question about it. It's the blue wall.
So who was worse, Jen Psaki or Karine Jean-Pierre? Let me know in the comments, guys.
Ellie Dillon email that NBC News obtained that you've talked about a little bit tells you a lot about where the heads are of the people on the campaign.
This is the chair of the campaign.
The chair of the campaign. She was also the campaign manager when Biden won in 2020. And basically, they did not talk about it. I know NBC has not made a call in Georgia, but they did not mention that Georgia is not a part of that email. Now there's North Carolina. You just made a call on that. It's about the blue wall states, and she warns that Arizona and Nevada will take some time. What does become challenging, I think part of the purpose of an email like that is also to buck up the troops inside the team who's been working so hard for months. That's part of it. And also to send that note to supporters. But yes, it becomes, as the path becomes narrower, there's no more margin for error. Or no more margin for something going a different way than you hoped it would. And right now, what the Harris team is doing, which happens on every presidential campaign, as you know as well, is sitting in what you call the boiler room, which is kind of an intense word to use, but that's what it's called. And they're looking at their vote goals in these counties and how the outcome aligns. And you look at everything from, did they get what they needed in the big cities? In Philly, there are some cities that haven't fully come in, so they're waiting for those, but also what the margins are for Trump, which are higher, as you've been reporting, and we've been talking about over on MSNBC, in some of the rural counties, meaning he's getting more votes there that they need to make up for in the cities. So it's a numbers game in each of these states.
But even in reliably blue states, we're seeing narrowing margins. We just saw it in Virginia. We called it. Kamala Harris won it, but I believe by a smaller margin than she did, or that the Democrats did 4 years ago. I want to show Minnesota right now, which we are calling too close to call. And this is a reliably blue state. Let me show you what the numbers look like, the breakdown. Half of the vote
Too close to call. That's a good gap.
Again, when you see that wide margin, you were thinking, what are you guys talking about? It's because our decision desk is crunching the numbers. They know where those votes have come from, whether they're reliably Trump districts or reliably a Kamala Harris or a Democratic area of the state. And on that basis, they're saying too close to call. Does that surprise you?
Minnesota is a close state. It often is a close state. It's one certainly that the Harris team would love to have been in their win column earlier.
Minnesota.
But again, I think for them, what becomes harder and harder is as you get more vote total in, and the path becomes narrower and narrower and narrower, and that's a bit where they are at this moment.
The sitting governor Tim Walz on the ticket, Minnesota's governor Tim Walz,
and a pretty popular governor in Minnesota. And there's a lot of things that bend the mind a little bit if you're the Harris team, including that. I don't know that they're overly worried about Minnesota, but certainly, yes, would have liked to have that and Virginia in their win column earlier.
I've heard a lot from people on the left who have asked over the last several weeks, how can this be a tie? What's your answer?
I would ask that. I would have asked the same question. I mean, I think
under the same scenario.
because Right. Obviously, with the economy, with the 2/3 of the American people who think the country's on the wrong track on the immigration, like all of the issues in kind of general polling would suggest that this would be a runaway for the Republican or for the non-party in power. The fact that it's not, I think there's obviously a
Do you
lot
think
of.
if any other Republican were on the ticket, you'd have a much greater margins in terms of a Republican victory?
That's difficult to answer
CNN
because
is saying
Donald
Trump won
brings out
Georgia?
such
Really?
a passionate base
Let me
where
see.
you might have a problem getting that overperformance in rural areas because he is so animating, especially on the right. Now,
So we got 91% reported for Georgia. We got 91% reported here, according to the Associated Press for Georgia here. So that's definitely a good look with Trump sitting at 51%. So I'd love to see 16 electoral votes added to Trump on that one. That put him at 246. Let me see. Let me look up CNN. Trump, Georgia. CNN. It doesn't look like CNN's confirming Georgia yet. I don't know about that. It's interesting. I'm on CNN's website here, and it's just this map is looking very different compared to Associated Press. Look at this, 153 to Trump sitting at 222. Like, that's a big difference compared to Associated Press. It's got Kamala Harris sitting at 205 and Trump sitting at 230. So I don't know about you guys, but I really hate this discrepancy. But there's a discrepancy because these are estimates, meaning some of these states are not at 100% reported yet. So they're not necessarily counting the same way, if that makes sense. For example, Georgia's 91%. One site might say, okay, Trump's ahead by almost 3 points with 91% reported. We're going to call it, Georgia a win, right? But another site might say, no, we want to see at least 95% reported with a 3% spread. And then we call it a winner. So, every website's going to they're going to add up the points differently from a preliminary perspective. And right now we're dealing with preliminaries. The only way you know for sure is when you get 100% across all states, then you know. But it is what it is. But the cool thing is that from Associated Press and from CNN, we're seeing Trump ahead. Now, I want to see Trump hit 270. How many of y'all want to type in 270 if you want to see Trump hit 270? Because I'm not going to feel confident or really comfortable until I see that. If I don't see that, I'm not, Let me refresh this. I'm waiting for that 270, y'all. 270. All right, let's go back. Oh, wait, they're playing some commercials over there. I ain't trying to watch no commercials. What are they saying over here? What is this?
Closer to the finish line. 80% of the votes have been counted at this point. 2.7 million to 2.6 million in terms of that. All right, we're following all the latest here on this on Live Now from Vox. Let's sign away for another quick 2-minute break.
I got to step away for a second. I got to check on my son and take a quick bathroom break. So I'll be right back.
Back in your two live now for Fox here on this election night. I'm the host, Andy Mack. We appreciate you joining us as we approach midnight on the East Coast as we are getting closer and closer in terms of that call for the White House. I do want to put up just this, another state going in favor of Vice President Kamala Harris, this being Virginia right now. The AP calling this in favor of her, 51% to 47%. And you can see the electoral amounts on that left side portion of your screen, the 270 needed to win, 230 right now in favor of the former President Donald Trump, 205. It's going to be a very, very close one in terms of this. So we're following that very, very closely. I do want to give you another race call, a call that we've really already seen the speaker for this, the senator out of Texas, Ted Cruz, the AP finally calling this one. It is a sizable margin right now at this point, 54% to 44%, some 5.25 million of votes for Ted Cruz in that state. We've already seen him speak to supporters there on the ground in that state. So I just wanted to give you an update on what we're seeing in terms of that state in Texas. But we're following all the latest here on this on Live Now from Fox. Let's continue. Let's bring in my colleague Austin Westfall, because we did see Ted Cruz being called, but Virginia going for Harris. And we're expecting to hear from Dave McCormick potentially in a little bit. We do have a live picture of that. Give me a breakdown of what we're seeing in terms of the Electoral College. What are we looking at right now, Austin?
So let's start off, before we get to the Electoral College, let's start off with the Senate map, because Texas going to Cruz, that is going to matter in the grand scheme of things. As things sit right now, Republicans have 49 out of the 50 seats that they need in order to get a split in the Senate. If they get 50-50, then that means that the vice president would be the tiebreaker. That means if J.D. Vance becomes the vice president, he would give the edge to the Republicans in the Senate. If Tim Walz becomes the vice president, that means the Democrats would become the party in power in the Senate. But right now, there are so many, Andy, so many of these blue seats that are competitive. They only need one more. They only need one more. The Republicans need one more seat to win in order to get to what they need to get to. So, and what we'll say here is Republicans do have 50. So yes, if they win the presidency, what that's going to mean is that they are going to control the Senate. If they get one more, that's going to confirm the fact that they've gotten the Senate. So
yeah,
let me
cut you off real quick, because that was a great breakdown. But we do see Colin Allred now at the microphone after Ted Cruz secured that victory. Let's put this up one more time just to give you a sense of what's going on. Ted Cruz taking it over him. Now the concession speech coming from Colin Allred there in Texas. Let's listen in to him and what he has to say here on Live Now from Fox.
Becoming rarer and rarer. I was inspired to run partly because of what I saw on January 6th. What happened when people lie about a free and fair election because they weren't happy with the results. I said then, and I'll say it now, you can't just be a patriot when your side wins. So tonight, we didn't win, but we will continue to be patriots. Isn't that right? I want to thank every single Texan, every single American who got involved in this race, but especially the folks who knocked on doors, who made phone calls, who gave whatever they could to this campaign. You know, I come from a family where we didn't have a lot of money. And so I know what it means when somebody sends in $5 or $10. It's an act of hope, and I appreciate them. And I really especially want to thank all the incredibly brave Texas women who've come forward and told their stories. Amanda Zarowski, Kate Cox, Lauren Miller, Dr. Austin Denard, Taylor Edwards, I could keep going. There are so many brave Texas women who've told their stories. And Allie and I will never forget them, and we will never stop fighting to overturn this abortion ban here in Texas. I carry 3 little rocks with me that my sons picked out on the playground. They represent my 2 kids and my wife, Allie. My boys are little. They're 3 and 5. I haven't seen them as much as I'd like to, and as for someone who grew up not knowing their father, that's a big deal to me. So I want to say a special thank you to my family, to my mother and father-in-law who have done so much child care.
Yes.
To the folks who mean the most to me.
I don't need to, I never do.
I ran for my boys, and I'm gonna keep fighting for my boys' future and for every Texas kid's future. And I hope y'all will too. There's a quote from Churchill that's been kicking around in my head that I'll probably mess up. But it said that courage is rightly esteemed as the first of human qualities, because as has been said, it's the quality that guarantees all others.
Sorry, guys, I'm back.
Courage.
Had to check on my son, had to hit the
courage, and I'm not tooting my own
restroom, and
horn
I was
here, but it's
also
the
hungry,
courage
so I brought
for
my
me to come
food
from a
back with me.
single-parent household without a lot of money to the United States Congress. It took courage for these.
What did I miss?
It took courage for these Texas women to come forward and talk about the most difficult moment of their lives in front of thousands of people.
Oh, wait, hold on a second.
It took courage for each and every one of you and everyone who got involved in this campaign.
Check this out, guys.
Secretary of State's office, watching those results come in, watching the numbers, and also where those votes are coming in as well. Now, I've spent the evening talking to some of my Republican sources throughout the state, and I asked them the question. I said, one, how are they feeling? They were all optimistic. But I said, if there is a lead from Donald Trump winning here in Georgia, what would be different from 2020? Of course, we all know that Georgia kind of shocked so many people around the country 4 years ago by flipping blue and helping send Joe Biden to the White House. But they said, again, across the board this time, that it was the push toward early voting by Republicans that they believe has really made a difference in the Peach State this time around. You remember 4 years ago, Donald Trump was really waving people off from voting early, telling them to go on Election Day. This time we've seen a very different message. His surrogates have been preaching a very different message. Even Governor Brian Kemp and other top Republicans in the state have been pushing that early voting message. When I spoke with one Republican source earlier tonight, he said, looking at early voting, he was optimistic. Also, the fact that
pushing early voting
tend to
too.
turn out more on Election Day, he was feeling good about the way things were going here in the state as well. So several sources telling me they believe that early voting did make a difference, guys.
All right, Blaine Alexander, thanks very much. I was going down, as we bring the panel back, I was going down the most important issues from the exit polls.
Yeah.
Immigration was number 4.
That's right. And that was Donald Trump's closing message, right? I mean, it was his message since he's been in the race. Think about his biggest day one policy priority, mass deportations. He's talked again and again with very few specifics on how that would be implemented.
Tio,
about,
you want some?
deporting people who have come into this country illegally here. It's always been a big issue for him, dating back something like 8 years now, 4th on the exit poll list. But look what was up there at number 2, the economy. And remember, just because a candidate were to win on the top issue, which this year, based on the exit polls now, is state of democracy, doesn't mean they're going to win overall. And
Can
state of
anyone
democracy
guess
is
what I'm eating
complicated
right
as the
now?
top issue because Republicans and Democrats see it different ways.
Yeah, I mean, both sides think there's a threat to democracy for different reasons. Can
I
we go
guarantee-
over
I
to
bet
Tommy
you
Thomas? He's been
nobody's gonna
pacing
guess what
over
I'm
there
eating
by
right
the
now.
Georgia map. Because it's interesting. I mean, we have the Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, a Republican, but
Thanks,
who has
Kevin.
certainly shown his independence, saying that Trump has an insurmountable lead. I believe you and Chuck have said there's still some vote
You heard
out
that, right?
there. It's not over
They're
yet.
talking about how Donald Trump
I'll
has
give you
an
point
insurmountable
counterpoint.
lead,
First off, let's
and this
see
is
where that
a
remaining
left-leaning
vote is
news
so far.
station.
Again, the giant bubbles,
All
that's
right,
where
let me
the
see
vote
what y'all
still
talking
needs to
about.
be counted.
Somebody
It's
said
all over
pudding.
the Atlanta
Nope.
metro region.
Cornflakes.
This is where
Nope.
Democrats are going to
Yogurt.
run up
Nope.
the score.
Something
This
healthy.
is where
Yes.
their base is, where they've been
Yellow
able to
Reynolds.
expand. So I'm going to click on a county here, like
Ice
Cobb
cream.
County. I'm going to
No.
bring it out to compare to Joe
Spinach,
Biden
no.
in 2020. Remember, she wants to perform over
Beth
or
wants to
at
know
where
what I'm
Biden
eating.
is right now.
I ain't
kinda
gonna
see
tell
where
you
her
yet, Beth.
watermarks are. I'm going to highlight this so you guys can see
Oh,
the
wait,
numbers
wait,
to
wait.
follow. Remember, on the
Vicky
left-hand
got it.
side, she wants to be
Vicky
at where
got
he
it.
is or higher.
I
So let's see
wonder
where we're at
why
here.
you said
Fulton County,
eggs.
71-72, slightly
Okay.
under. We move over to Gwinnett.
It's actually eggs with
a little
something
bit under,
else.
73.
Let me
She's
see if anybody can
overperforming in
guess what that
Rockdale
something
County.
else
We'll come
is.
to DeKalb here. A little bit under. we come over to Douglas County. She's overperforming. But here's the flip
Somebody
side
said
of all
oatmeal.
this.
Nope.
Let's
But
throw
I do
a
like
dart
oatmeal. I love
to
oatmeal.
the east side of Georgia.
It's
Any
not
county, I'm going to
wonton
pick a random
soup.
county. Look how Trump's
Snowflakes. Nope.
overperforming. 68%
Peanut butter-
to 71.
peanut
Again,
butter
I'm gonna just
sandwich.
touch random counties
Nope.
here.
Although I love
65,
those.
69. These aren't big
Sometimes I
counties,
just eat
but
peanut
any
butter
county I
on a
touch,
spoon.
he's going-
I
except
know
for
I'm
that
weird.
one. Any other county? Well, actually, no.
That's usually my
He
midnight
flipped it.
snack.
Actually, this
It's like I'm not
any
ready to go
county
to
you come
bed.
in
I
in
just
rural
want a
Georgia,
snack.
he's
I'll just
flipping
get
all
like a
these
scoop
counties.
of peanut butter.
And like Jen Psaki just said, it's math. Can they run up the score here? Is this what the Secretary
Yes,
of
there
State is
is
talking
Mexican
about? The numbers are
cheese
so
on
high
it,
in the rural
shredded
counties.
cheese, but
Democrats
it's like
won't catch
there's
them
another food.
in the Atlanta metro region. But there's still a lot of vote out in this area. So that's one of the reasons
Not
why we
deviled
can't vote for
eggs.
this.
I don't have salsa this time, though. I love salsa on
We have
eggs.
polls closing
All right,
at
what
the
you
top
got?
of the hour and the beginning of the morning. It'll be midnight in the East Coast, and we await the results from Hawaii. The polls close there in about 10 seconds
Eggs,
from now.
yes.
So we
Noodles,
will
no.
take a pause here so our other stations can join
No
us.
tuna,
or
no
head to their
cookies, no avocado, no ramen. All right, I'll give it to you. All about the Benjamins, baby. So
And
he
as
says
we hit
eggs
the
and
midnight
bacon.
hour
Yes,
here in the
it's
East,
Canadian
NBC
bacon.
News now making a projection of the state of Hawaii that Kamala Harris will win those 4 electoral votes in Hawaii. That's the only poll closing at the midnight hour here. The road to 270. Harris now with 189. Donald Trump still leading with 230 electoral votes.
All right, we've got quite a few battlegrounds still pending tonight. Pennsylvania, the biggest prize, 84% of the vote in. It is too close to call. In Wisconsin, same story. Here we go. 75% of the vote in, a difference of 87,000 votes. Michigan, too close to call at this hour as well. Midnight on the East Coast. 15 votes up for grabs. They're too close. Arizona, too early to call. Just been counting for about 3 hours now.
Oh, man.
Out west
That is
in
too
Nevada,
close for
also
Arizona.
too early to call. And in Minnesota, we have too close to call. Democrats still feeling
But they
very
only
good
got
about their
2% in for
prospects
Nevada.
there, but the margins are not at a place where we are ready to call that. Georgia, too close to call at this hour, too. We just discussed that. So that might be a ray of light for Kamala Harris, or perhaps a very
True.
a narrowing of her path to victory. We should mention, Tom, we
Yeah,
have
eggs and
called North
avocado
Carolina.
is
That was
fire.
the first battleground to call, and it stays in the red column for Donald Trump.
Yeah, and I want to go through Pennsylvania now because we're starting to get more vote in Pennsylvania.
My
And I
wife
wanna
is
focus
Spanish,
on
so-
on the east side of Pennsylvania here. This is 2024 right
We
now.
definitely get our
a lot of the vote
avocados
is
in.
still out. But let me show you 2020. You can see how much of this section was blue in 2020. Again, Biden won these counties. Now this is 2024. He's flipping counties like Monroe. Again, it's about a 200 vote difference there, so we can't really put too much in that. But he's ahead. Northampton County, remember, this is the one that has picked the president, or at least picked the winner of Pennsylvania, going back to the Kennedy years. This is Easton. This is a fast-growing area, suburbs. It used to be the people that used to work at Bethlehem Steel. It's now changing. Again, fast-growing suburbs in south central Pennsylvania. 52%, he's on top. Again, a reminder here, this is a county that Biden won in 2020. And this is new right now. This is Bucks County. 56% in. Still a lot of the vote is out. There's only about a 400 vote difference there. We're still waiting on 183,000 votes. So Republicans can't really draw too much out of this. But Democrats would rather these counties were all blue. Let's move a little further south around the collar counties of Philadelphia here. Montgomery County, this is where Governor Shapiro is from, 61%. Performing slightly under Joe Biden, but not too bad. Chester County, 58 to 54. That's a bigger gap there. Again, remember, Joe Biden wins Pennsylvania because he does better than Hillary Clinton in those suburbs around Philadelphia. And let's take a look at Philadelphia right now. Okay, 81 for Biden, 77 for Kamala Harris. There's still about 30% of the vote is out. But again, these aren't the trend lines that Democrats are going to want to see. Look, it could all change when that vote comes in. This is where we are right now. This is a snapshot in time. It could all change. Erie County is another swing county that we're watching. About 75% of the vote is in. She's overperforming Biden there. That's a good sign for her, especially in Western PA, where Democrats knew they were going to have some trouble because of the issue of fracking. And let's look at Allegheny County real quick. This is Pittsburgh. 94% of the vote is in, and she's about at the same mark where Biden is. That's where we stand right now, guys, in Pennsylvania.
How about Wisconsin? Can you do Door County? Because as you well know, fun fact alert, Door County has, do you like the fun fact alert?
Fun fact number 7.
It's picked the president in the last 6 elections.
Yeah, so right now, if that's what you're betting on, Door County is blue. Democrats are on top there. But look, guys, this is a very small number. Door County is not a big county, but it's one that all the political watchers look at because it usually picks the winner almost always of the statewide race in Wisconsin. Right now it's blue. That's a great sign for Democrats. I'm going to look at another one, like I mentioned, Sauk County. This is another one that usually picks the winner. Trump is on top here. Biden won it in 2020, so he's really overperforming, going from 48 to 52. But again, there's still about 30% of the vote that's out there. So we got to wait and see. The big ones we're watching in Wisconsin, as you know, Savannah, Dane County, University of Wisconsin here, the fastest growing area of the state. 75%. She's slightly underperforming there. Again, she has to turn out in these cities because, like the other battleground states, I should say, unlike the other battleground states, there are not large minority groups in Wisconsin. It's the widest of all the battleground states. And then Milwaukee, again, we're going to wait till late
Basically,
to get all
that's
the vote
his
in
nice way of
Milwaukee.
saying ain't no
She's
black
at
people in
66%.
Wisconsin.
4 years ago, Joe Biden won Milwaukee, and he won the state of Wisconsin with 69%.
Oh, my
She's going to have
God.
to turn up that vote and hope her voters show up. Guys?
Yeah. We got a lot of vote to count there, though, in Wisconsin.
You could call it the Battle of the Bellwethers, if that's what you're looking at here. I also think Bucks County, I will take my Bucks County native privilege as somebody who grew up there. It's an interesting one because you've got lower Bucks, central Bucks, upper Bucks, and it looks different in some
You
of
have
those
Starbucks.
areas. You also have plenty of
It's after
Starbucks.
midnight. It happens.
Here it comes. I love it.
I know.
Get the M&Ms ready, too.
Yes.
But it looks different than like Montgomery County, Delaware County demographically here. And I was in touch with a good Republican source there who thinks that Donald Trump is going to do better. And we're seeing it, starting to see it in some of these numbers in Bucks than he did in 2020. That said, remember, this was a +4 county for Joe Biden back in 2020. It is represented by a Republican in Congress. So it's one of these places very, very swingy and a place that a lot of folks
Very
are watching.
swingy.
And I see you nodding your head, Jen.
Yeah, well, I did
Some
not grow up in
swingers.
Bucks County, but I've spent a lot of time thinking about Bucks County over the course of many years in politics. You know, looking at county, as Tom was going through it, one of the things that we're seeing over and over again is that she's underperforming where Biden was in 2020. It doesn't mean that's where Biden would have performed, where he's still the nominee, but it does, and that's not just in Pennsylvania, where you're seeing it in Wisconsin, you're seeing it in other places. One of the things as we've watched this results that I've been thinking about that Democrats will have to think about, depending on what happens here, is there's been a realignment of states Democrats focus on. And, you know, Georgia and North Carolina are in many ways like baby blue. And I mean that because they've only been blue for one cycle, right? So they've done that because of organizing on the ground, but they're not reliably blue. And the problem is Ohio and Florida are gone. for
Well, in the
Democrats.
case of North Carolina, it was baby blue in 2008 and not since.
It hasn't been since. So that's, I don't know what color it is. It's lavender. So yes, exactly. So I think one of the things that they will need to think about, regardless of the outcome, is where the states are that they're going to play. They would love to have Texas, of course. Texas didn't turn out for them to work out. Maybe it wouldn't for 8 years. But with states off the map, it's like, is it Georgia and North Carolina? Are there places they need to invest? That's one of the challenges
to
too,
Jen's
I think.
point, I'm getting an increasing number of texts from Democratic sources who are looking at these returns come in, the fact that she's not meeting her benchmarks in these various counties where she needs to, who are really starting to take that reflective tone of Democrats and thinking about the next election cycle need to think about how to better meet voters where they are. Again, we still have a lot of vote to come in. We still have to see what happens with the blue wall. But the fact that this is such a fight for them, the fact that this is a tied race, it's also taking a step back. Voters saying so far, at least, they like Trump.
Well, it's so interesting, too, because I remember in our earlier days in politics, after Republicans lost to Barack Obama, there was this famous autopsy commissioned by the head of the RNC that said and gave some tough love to Republicans saying, listen, this country is changing demographically. And if you don't get a piece of that pie, you're going nowhere. Well, how interesting that we actually are seeing tonight Donald Trump getting more of the Latino vote. We'll see if he, got a better share of the black vote. I don't think we've seen that in the exit polls yet.
Wow,
but
the
you're
left
starting to
channel.
see that.
Yeah, that is true.
Left-leaning news channel is admitting Donald Trump got more of the Latino vote
campaign
and the black
right? There
vote.
weren't policy proposals that were dueling. To me, it seems much more cultural what you're seeing.
Well, isn't that the note for Democrats?
That is a harder thing to grapple with. That's my point. It takes a lot of deep soul searching. We don't know what the outcome is going to be. But if you look again to the breakdown, college versus non-college educated, rural versus urban, those are big cultural issues that are beyond whether somebody has an 81-page economic plan or whatever their other plan is. And that's a different
I disagree
conversation.
with you a little bit, Jen, on
All
that.
right, that's
I do
okay.
think
We'll have a little disagreement, but go ahead.
I do think there was policy, but it was more around the record. So I mean, Donald Trump was running as the incumbent president, without being the incumbent president. He was running on his record primarily prior to COVID and reminding people, whether it was on the immigration, the economy. I mean, I remember when I was on the 2020 campaign prior.
Quick update, guys. Looks like Kamala is catching up here. She's within 20 points of Donald Trump. This is definitely concerning. Good news, though, is Georgia's now at 93%, and Trump is leading by approximately 2 points, 2 percentage points, 2.3 percentage points. So I'm pretty confident that Trump could take Georgia. Obviously, anything can happen, but looks like Trump could take Georgia and move him ahead by 16 points, putting him at 246. Trump is still ahead with Pennsylvania by roughly 2.9 percentage points. If he can get Pennsylvania and Georgia, that will put him at what, 265? Yeah, 265. So we need those states. We need those states. That's all I want to say right now.
Behind me, there are huge cheers from a crowd that has been filing in here, drinking beer, wine, and cocktails for some time now and is ready to celebrate. And I'll just say, anecdotally, it is a younger crowd. It is a younger crowd than other election nights I've covered, other Republican events that I've covered. And I think it reflects something that we've seen in the exit polls, this so-called shift of the bro vote in particular towards Donald Trump, the young men who he has put so central in this campaign. You know, I think about the fact that just today when he was voting, he was asked by another reporter about what he thought one of the most important moments of this campaign was. And he mentioned Joe Rogan, the podcaster, and the fact that he did that podcast interview. And then subsequently got Rogan's endorsement, which he made a big part of his closing remarks just last night. Feels like a week ago now. Trump is talking to a different segment of America and has created a different electorate for Republicans than has existed in any other Republican race that I've covered. It's reflected in this room. I think we're seeing it reflected in the states he's putting together, just as you guys were just discussing about kind of what states are in play, what the map is going to look like now, and potentially for cycles in the future.
All right, Garrett, thank you. I want to go over to Peter Alexander, your counterpart over at Kamala Harris headquarters in Washington, D.C. So what is the mood there?
Well, you can hear the music blaring, but within the crowd right now, it's pretty silent. A lot of glum looks on the faces here over the course of this evening. They've been playing as the returns were coming in on one of the cable channels, and frankly, they weren't the returns that most of the people here in the room wanted. So you start hearing several dozen people start chanting, music, music. They muted the TV and blasted some music so they could sort of...
Kevin's like, yo,
some of the folks here this
I'm
evening.
going to be farting in there.
Who was at
Actually, eggs
don't do that to me, though. Taking place at a hotel not far from here. The situation there, the scene was described as that of a funeral right now. Now, that doesn't mean this thing is over, but it does give you a sense of the way people are feeling right now. I was with Kamala Harris just yesterday as she was traveling through Pennsylvania at that late night event. Actually, it was just 24 hours ago. She was with Lady Gaga, Ricky Martin, Oprah Winfrey, and she said to the tens of thousands gathered that momentum is on our side, but clearly there was a different message being communicated now in the form of that document that was obtained by NBC News, the statement sent by the campaign chair, Jen O'Malley Dillon, saying basically that we always knew this race was going to be tight, and increasingly it appears that they believe the blue wall states are their best path going forward at this time. That's what it seems to be the way this night is going to go for most folks here. It's not the end of the road. Jen O'Malley Dillon also saying we're going to keep at it tomorrow, but we wait to hear from Kamala Harris, of course, in the course of the next couple of hours. We'll let you know.
Jen, how important are notes like that? Not for our consumption, but for the consumption of the campaign.
Hugely important. I think people forget. I've been on winning presidential campaigns and losing ones. It feels better when you win. Just to state the obvious. But
I agree.
You know. We can agree.
Nobody wants to lose.
You know, this is a team that has been, many of them through a massive transition just 107 days ago, where many of them signed up to work for somebody slightly different. And Joe Biden, you know, it's been, they've been working 20 hours a day. They've been eating bad pizza, drinking bad beer, all of the things.
Eating bad pizza. Oh my God.
But at a moment like this, now we know earlier in the evening they were trying to keep them in line and all this, but now you're at a point where you have no control.
You don't, but you need to keep the campaign team's spirits up because they're continuing to talk to voters and counsel people who may have questions. And they're still a part of this big team that's been working to elect Kamala Harris. They don't have control, but the end has not happened yet. And so they need to keep them all, their spirits up. That's the goal.
You say the end hasn't happened yet. I mean, do you still hold out hope that there's a path? I mean, a reasonable path?
Well, look, I think it becomes, as I said earlier, more and more challenging as more results come in and you see that the blue wall looks like the primary possible path. And as you see her underperforming Biden in a number of these counties, that makes it more challenging. Now, there are still, if you talk to Democrats, which I have, they believe there are votes that are still coming in Philadelphia. There are still votes coming in cities. That's often how these nights go. So I'm a believer you got to wait until you know. That's what happens internally here as well. But yes, if you're on the campaign right now, you're feeling pretty down because there are places you wanted to have in your win column to give you more space and breathing room, and you don't have them in this moment.
As
How
we
many
talk
Trump
about
supporters
this
we got
idea
in here?
of the Democratic brand, Jen, and as you've been having this conversation here, I just want to
If
throw
you're
out a
listening
data
to this
point the table
conversation,
here,
you
because
can
there's a
tell that the
ballot initiative
Democrats
that has
are
just passed
really
in the
feeling
state
down right
that
now.
enshrines a right to paid sick leave and a higher minimum wage, and it passed with 59% support. If I were to say that, maybe you'd say blue state probably, right?
California, right?
I'm really
Missouri,
50-50,
right? A state that
honestly,
we called
Kevin.
almost right away for former President Trump here.
That's
which
how I
think
feel. I
speaks
don't
to
feel
what you're
confident
getting
right
at here,
now.
This idea of a
I feel
realignment in this moment. You've
I'm
talked
glad
about
to
it,
see Trump
Chuck's
is in the
talked about it, we've had
lead,
that
but I don't feel
conversation here.
confident
I
because
also think
I don't
Hallie had the
I don't feel
opportunity
like
to interview
we got a
Vice
fair
President
shake
Kamala
during the
Harris,
last
and you
election,
asked her a fascinating
and
question.
we're
Do you
not
think the country
we're not out
is
of the
ready
woods yet.
for a
That's
black
really
woman
where I
president?
stand right now.
And she said yes. And depending on how this night goes, I think that will be one of the questions that gets
This
asked
is
as
the,
well.
the piece that, and again,
What
we
are
don't
you
know what
thinking
the
right now,
outcome is
Kev?
yet. But I think when Hillary Clinton lost, a lot of people felt like, a lot of women, a lot of Democrats felt like there's never going to be a woman in my lifetime, right? And I think one of the things that is going to be a challenge if Harris loses is that there will be Democrats who will not want to take a risk on a woman, on someone who's diverse, because they'll think, I like that person, but the country's not ready. Here's the thing. The country's not ready until the country is ready with Barack Obama. There's a range of factors that
They don't
lead
have
to the
nothing
win
to
or
do with the
loss of
gender.
anyone, and we don't know what's happened yet.
I
That
would
will all
vote
have
for a
to be
woman
delved
if she
into,
was
but I do worry
qualified.
about that.
I don't
if
care
she loses.
We do know
if
it is
she has
something
a
that
uterus
she
or
leaned
not.
out of in her campaign, unlike Hillary Clinton
Or
in
Johnson.
2016. It was not something, she didn't open her stump speeches with that idea. I mean, she talks about it, and she talked about it with me. She's talked about it with all of you here too, that it would be the president for all Americans, and that she is sort of putting her head down and grinding it out.
But her, if she loses, it won't be because women didn't turn out. It won't be because of women, right? It won't be because she pulled back a lot of the Democratic base that had gone away and were, double haters, as we called them for a long time, before there was a switch at the top of the ticket. And that is actually how Barack Obama also ran and won, which he didn't lead with the historic nature of his candidacy on his sleeve. There will be a lot of people who second guess that if she loses.
But if she loses, it may also be because there are tremendous headwinds in terms of an unpopular incumbent and people feeling terrible about the economy. And even if inflation is down to 2%, sometimes the stuff you feel, your gas prices, your groceries, it doesn't feel that way. So that may also be the rationale.
That's exactly my point. I was trying to make earlier, and you just did it in a more articulate way, which is that there will be there always leads to conclusion in both parties when your candidate loses, or if they lose. And again, we don't know yet, but and people will leap to different
Guys,
ones,
they're already
right?
talking about
The country
Kamala
isn't ready
Harris
for a woman.
losing.
The country isn't ready for a black woman. All of these things, but there are a lot of factors that play into the win or loss. And I think if
I'm
she
not
loses,
jumping the gun
I'm
yet,
hopeful
though.
people will look at the broad scope of where the country is, the cultural divides, the rural-urban divides,
the education divides.
The education divides. There are just a lot of factors at play
I
in
would
presidential
actually-
races.
I'll give you something that may be positive for you going forward. Should this all end the way we were talking, if that's a possibility, you still have a very young, good bench in Governor Shapiro, the governor of North Carolina, the Gretchen Whitmer, who could possibly bridge that gap. And as opposed to saddling them with the L. If they would have joined the ticket with the vice president, or if they had replaced the vice president and become the nominee with 100 and some days out in a very difficult situation, I think you would have been weaker as a party for it.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, I think that if she loses and Donald Trump wins, there will be millions of people in this country who voted for her who will feel like we're in the state of an emergency. And I think that is how people will respond and feel. And they will be looking for hope, a resistance, and opposition. And there are a lot of people on the Democratic bench. You mentioned some of them were in the beef steaks we all, lived through this summer. Some of them were not, who I would expect would all be out there on everybody's shows in the coming days.
Well, and that's what makes the timing, I think, of President Biden's decision to step down after the debate something that, if she does in fact lose, will be under a microscope, because of course there was so much discussion even over the summer about potentially having an open primary and having that fight play out within the Democratic Party. So I think it's one of the big questions moving forward.
And you mentioned debate. We haven't really talked about that. There was no second debate. And, and you have to wonder how that affected the trajectory of this race, because by most accounts, he didn't perform well in his first debate with Harris.
True. And I also think that it throws into question a lot of things.
Let me ask you guys, how do you think Trump performed against Kamala Harris in that debate?
If she doesn't win, yes, there should have been a second debate, but do debates matter? They should matter. They're the public being able to see the candidates. She has a far superior ground operation that has been invested in across the country. The Republican state parties, you can disagree with me here, of course, are falling apart in many states in the country. That will throw into question, does that matter? It should matter, but it will throw that into question. So yes, not a second debate, not an opportunity for people to see them person to person. The first one definitely benefited her, but if she doesn't win, it didn't benefit her enough to put her in the White House.
Well, we've got a lot to talk about. We're still waiting on a lot of numbers from the battleground states and the road to 270. We'll be right back after this break.
All right, so Gail Reynolds says he seemed to keep his cool. Lena says Trump did great. Sejorid Bout says Trump did well. Kamala had nothing to say. Daryl Armstrong says much more focused and didn't keep repeating himself. Paul Decker says crushed her. K&G says wasn't too impressed. He could have done better, in my humble opinion. Honestly, K&G, I actually agree with you. Harris not on Rogan killed her and slogan, I will fix it theme. I also agree with that as well. I think Kamala Harris being on Rogan probably had a bigger chance of helping her than it would have harmed her. I'm not saying it couldn't have harmed her, but I think she would have gotten more reach being on Rogan than not being on Rogan. But she had all these freaking rules and stipulations that it didn't work out for her. So she shot herself in the foot on that one. Tulsi's the only woman on the horizon I could vote for. She's probably a good woman to consider voting for. Probably not the only one, but she's probably pretty good. Spice Lover says, yeah, she never has anything to say, or it's always bull crap. Trump did really well in that debate. Okay. He did debate 3 people and he did well. You know, that's a good point, Nora. Trump did debate 3 people. It was Kamala Harris, it was David Muir, and Lindsey Davis. And when I watched the debate, I didn't really look at it from the fact that Trump was being attacked, not just by Kamala Harris, but he was being attacked by, ABC's David Muir and Lindsey Davis. The fact that they only fact checked him. And it's like, who gives you the authority to fact check? And how are you able to fact check instantly like that? You know what I mean? Like, and then Trump has he didn't have internet access right there where he can do a quick Google search and disprove their quote unquote fact checking. So then Trump ends up wasting his, because you got to remember they're timed. So Trump ends up wasting. Oh wait, hang on one second. They're saying something. Hold on one second. What are they saying over here?
Unfold.
Let's zoom in on Michigan.
52% in for Michigan.
Hey guys, okay, so we have now more than 50% of the vote is in Michigan, as you mentioned, Lester, 15 electoral votes. This was Biden's largest margin of victory in 2020 when it came to the battleground states. Almost the whole game is Wayne County. It's Detroit, not enough vote there. About a quarter of the vote is in. We can't really make any projections or calls here because so much of that vote is out. But just to give you an idea of where Biden was in 2020, again, a lot of this vote is out, so I don't want to spend too much time on this, but 68% tonight, right now, Harris at this point in time is at 58%. Not a great number for her. It is a tale of two suburbs in Michigan, right? You have Oakland County. This is where Kamala Harris did that rally, or I should say that town hall with Oprah Winfrey. This is one of the wealthiest counties in all of Michigan.
They balling out there.
Michigan is here. The suburbs of Detroit. This is where Biden was in 2020, 56%. This is where Harris is tonight, 53%. There's still about 20% of the vote. Just over Macomb County. Now, this is a little more middle class, a little more working class. It is a suburb of Detroit as well. Republicans do very well here. Trump was at 53%. There's only about a third of the vote in. He's at 57, so he's overperforming there. Some of the other areas we want to watch, Grand Rapids, Kent County. This is the last place where Trump held a rally last night. And, or I should say, yes, on Monday. Sorry, getting my days confused here. Biden was at 52. She's overperforming there. That's good news for the Democrats. I also want to talk about Washtenaw. This is the University of Michigan. Go Big Blue if you're a fan out there. 71% of the vote is in. Remember, this is a college county. Democrats have to do very well here. Biden, 72%. Tonight, Harris is underperforming right now with almost three quarters of the vote in. Ingham County, again, another college county. This is where Michigan State is. Half the vote is in. Biden was at 65. Harris is at 56.9. I want to see some Trump barometers right now. Cass County, Trump's at 66%. 4 years ago, he was at 63. So again, the story of Trump overperforming in those rural counties, we're seeing as well in Michigan. Still, a lot of the vote is out, though. Look, we still need half the vote to come in. A lot of that's going to be Detroit, as we know. I'm going to look at Saginaw. This is a battleground county. This is where she toured that semiconductor plant. We don't see much there. There's only 1% of the vote in. I don't want to draw anything from there. We're going to check Kalamazoo. She appeared here with Michelle Obama. It was the Harris and Michelle Obama appearance. Only 13% of the vote in, and she's slightly underperforming. Guys, a lot of the vote is still out in Michigan, but the trend lines we've been seeing in the other states, we're sort of seeing in Michigan as well. But again, I don't want to draw too much from that because there's a lot of that vote that's out.
So interesting to see you do those university towns because
It's shocking.
Well,
Yeah.
because there was a lot of turnout and Democrats early in the day were kind of giddy about that. But I think this might be a function of what we've been seeing, which
Right.
is young men turning out for Donald Trump and maybe skewing what you normally would expect from a university town.
And something we haven't mentioned just yet, because so much of the vote is out in Wayne County. You have Detroit and you have Dearborn. That makes up Wayne County, that Arab American Muslim vote. We're talking about more than 200,000 voters there. Again, it's probably not going to be monolithic, but they're uncommitted votes as well. The question is what happens? Do they not show up? Do they vote third party? Do they vote for Trump? Or do they stick with Harris? We still don't know.
Okay, Tom.
Well, there you have it, guys. There you have it. So looks like Trump's doing pretty good in Michigan. So let's look at Michigan. Michigan, where you at? Where you at? Oh, here. Okay. So 53% reported. Trump is up 52 to 46. That's good. 15 electoral votes, guys. That's what we need from Michigan. Pennsylvania is at 86% reported. Trump is still leading by a good margin here. Okay, that's looking pretty good so far. Let's keep it going. Georgia's at 93%. Let me just hit refresh just to be sure. Yeah, 93%. PA 86, 53. Okay. But yeah, I was saying that I feel like, I didn't really consider the fact when Donald Trump was debating on ABC against Kamala Harris that he was actually getting attacked by the freaking moderators, and that one of the moderators was Kamala Harris's freaking sorority sister, that Lindsay Davis chick. David Muir, those jokers are just like fact checking left and right, Donald Trump only. And it's like you're timed. So you're wasting time. If you're Donald Trump, you're wasting time defending the fact that you just got attacked by Kamala Harris. You're defending yourself against these retarded moderators who are, basically killing your momentum because they're over here trying to fact check you in the middle. It's like, look, your job is to moderate, to make sure you're not talking over the other person and to administer the questions, not to freaking fact check. It is the debater, Kamala Harris, it's her job to debate and argue with Donald Trump if she disagrees with what he's saying. So anyway, that was a big sham. And I felt like when I first watched it, I was like, damn, Trump didn't do so good. And then I thought about it and I was like, wow, like Trump did as well as he could do debating three people. Cause it wasn't like, it's not like if he debated Kamala Harris, he would get like he would lose. But when it's one versus three people versus one person, it's a completely different ball game. So when you consider that, I think Trump held his own pretty well. I think he held his own pretty well. And Kamala Harris, she does a phenomenal job of skating around questions and saying a bunch of stuff after being asked a question without actually saying anything at all. So it is what it is. Let's see what this guy's talking about. What he talking about?
15 minutes ago to say that people are still voting. It is, 2.5 hours past when polls were supposed to close. People that are still in line can still vote, and they are still voting. We're hearing that there's a polling place, a tribal community that has about 50 people still in line. It is going to take a while for those votes to get counted. In-person votes that come in today have to wait to be counted until the very last person in Nevada takes their turn to vote. So this is going to take some time. We're also understanding there was a University of Nevada, Reno, that took a while. There were about 50 people that still had to vote after polls closed there. That is because
exactly,
we're
Jeanette.
hearing same-day registrations were spiking at college campuses. College students realized, you know what, I think I am going to vote. And so they signed up to vote on the same day, clogged the system a little bit. None of this is to say that this is any indication that there's anything wrong, any indication of fraud. It just means that the system is taking a while. And as we often report in the Silver State, it may take a minute before we get totals here. Back to you.
All right, Steve, thanks very much. NBC News senior legal correspondent Laura Jarrett joins us now. She's at the Vote Watch desk with an update on the abortion measures on the ballots in several states.
Hey, guys. Yeah, we've been tracking these across 10 different states tonight. And at least so far, we can make calls for 4 different states. And it's worth noting here, the places where the abortion referendums have actually gone through and passed are places where abortion rights are not in jeopardy. Places like Colorado, where abortion is easily on the ballot there and has managed to pass. The first one, New York, again, obviously you can still get an abortion in New York, but there was part of a package of anti-discrimination laws to try to shore up these rights. Again, these are constitutional amendments. The next one, in Maryland, you can get an abortion up to the point of viability, around 24 weeks of pregnancy now. And it, again, will be enshrined in the Constitution. The big exception here, guys, Florida, that one was different because it required a supermajority to pass.
That's exactly what I heard,
60% of
Crystal.
voters, and it did not meet that threshold.
It was only like
just above it,
a couple
just
of
short of it,
Republican
around
counties
58%.
that
So that
Donald
one,
Trump
the
previously
abortion
won that were
referendum
affected by
failed. It
the
will not enshrine
voter
constitutional rights to abortion
ballot
in the state of
outages
Florida,
today.
and the 6-week ban will stand there. Guys, we're going to keep watching other states like South
At least the
Dakota,
last I checked,
also
anyway.
Missouri, Nebraska. The referendums are still on the ballot there, and they're not yet at a point where we can project those. Send it back to you
All
guys.
right, Laura, thanks very much.
We've got a new guest on our panel. We've got former Housing and Urban Development Secretary, Democrat Julian Castro, and Republican Mark Lauder remains with us. He was the communications director for Trump's 2020 campaign. Nice to have you both with us. Congressman, I have to ask you about the Latino vote, because we're looking at an exit poll that shows Latino men broke for Trump by 10 points. They went for Biden by 23. That's a 33-point swing. How do you make sense of that?
Yeah, I think all of us are trying to make sense of that. Look, this is one exit poll, so I'm not prepared to draw complete conclusions from this, but I think it's safe to say, right? We've seen enough evidence that there was a significant shift among Latinos. I attribute that to several things. I think that you were talking about divides earlier, right? There's this in this Trump era, the rural
I think Trump
divide,
would
also
have done a whole lot better too
educational
if
background.
they didn't have that comedian up on freaking stage at
particularly
Madison
in these
Square
places
Garden
that are more small town and
telling some
rural,
jokes that
he has
normally
picked up
wouldn't have been a
significant Latino
problem, but
support.
if you
I
tell a
think we're
joke in
seeing
the
that in
wrong
places
setting,
like
then all of a
Pennsylvania.
sudden, you get a lot of
In addition to
backlash.
that, from what I
So
could gather, the
I think that was a
economic
very
message
poorly
really resonated. You have
executed
to remember, this is a working class
performance.
community by and large, and all of
They
those
should never have had that
messages
guy on the
he
stage.
stuck to about we had the greatest economy. And,
I would never have
look
approved
how
that
bad
for
inflation
Trump's
is and so
campaign.
forth. I think that played well this year. I'll be interested to see
That
whether
was
there's a
unnecessary
difference in
drama.
Nevada and Arizona. Those are states where the Latino community is much more organized and has been by Democrats for longer than in places like Pennsylvania or some of the other battleground states.
We've got to make a call.
Oh,
here,
well, here we go.
Secretary. This is NBC News projection in the state of Georgia.
Okay.
NBC News projects that Donald Trump
Ooh.
will win in Georgia when all the votes are
y'all
counted.
see that?
There's the breakdown right now, 118,000 vote margin. But again, Donald Trump, the projected winner. This is a big call here.
Wow.
On a night in which we've waited quite some time for some of these important battleground calls.
Georgia,
Here's what the
yo.
road to 270 looks like. Donald Trump drawing closer now to that magic number. He's at 246, Harris at 189.
Well, this means it's blue wall or bust for Kamala Harris. It's Pennsylvania,
jump.
Wisconsin, and Michigan, or there is no path to 270 for her. So we'll continue to keep an eye on this as we await results in those big industrial Midwest states, as well as the
54.
battlegrounds out west.
Oh,
We're
sure,
going
you
to
got
pause
that.
a
Okay.
moment. We want to let the local stations hit their local news, and we'll be back in a moment.
All right, so this one. Wow. What is Nevada? I wonder how many electoral votes does Nevada have?
And
Guys,
welcome
I'm getting
back.
tired.
That news is sinking in that Georgia will go into the Donald Trump column here tonight. Certainly a major piece.
Wow.
On and putting Donald Trump even closer to that magic
I was
270.
just looking over at Tom, who's doing the back of the envelope math here. So
I'm gaming
show
up
us
the
our
scenario
map.
here. I just want to make this very simple for us here and also our viewers at home. So we projected Georgia and North Carolina for former President Trump to go back to the White House. Look at his number right here, 252.
Wow.
If he wins
Look at
Pennsylvania,
that, guys.
he's going back to the White House, 271. It's coming down to Pennsylvania right now for
Wow.
Republicans. What the math changes now for Kamala Harris, right? Because now she no longer has a Sun Belt strategy. She's lost Georgia. She's lost North Carolina. If she wins Nevada and Arizona, she's still going to have to pick off 2 states in the blue wall. She no longer has that path. Listen, if she wins the entire blue wall, yes, she'll go back to the White House. That is still an option for her. Listen, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, she has to win all 3. But it looks like this is the entire game for her right now, guys. By losing North Carolina, losing Georgia, things have just gotten much easier for former President Trump. We're going to be watching Pennsylvania more than ever before right now because those 19 electoral votes will put him over the top if we project that state for him. Guys,
this is
Tom,
a
thanks very much.
left-wing news show.
We'll turn to Secretary Castro here. Your thoughts on, at this point, where we are and where this is going to go?
It feels like 2016. Honestly, it feels like 2016. And just the path becoming smaller and smaller. There are still votes to be counted, and we saw a lot of enthusiasm today. And so it's possible that you have significant election day voting that could change this. But what I've noticed is just in county after county in Pennsylvania that he's been overperforming and that she's been underperforming.
Wow.
What Biden
They're
and Trump
admitting
did
it.
in 2020. And that's, for Democrats has to be worrisome.
What do you attribute that to? I mean, it's
Wow.
early. I mean, but when you look at that, they you can't say they didn't park in Pennsylvania. They did.
That was a big win for
and they
Trump
have this
getting Georgia.
superior organization, most analysts think. What do you think was the difference maker?
I think she was put in a very difficult position by President Biden.
Let me see.
Hate to interrupt you. I'm sorry, but we have a call in the U.S. Senate that will change the balance of power in the U.S. Senate. NBC News now calling GOP control of the Senate.
That's with the victory of Deb Fischer, the incumbent in Nebraska, who was given quite the run for her money from an independent there, Dan Osborne, who said he wouldn't caucus with either side.
All right, I'm not
It
saying I
went
don't
down
care
to the wire,
about
but in the
that,
end,
but I don't
the
want to hear about that right
Nebraska
now. What I do want to tell you guys, I want to share this with you guys, is check this out. Nevada, which is a state that is not yet, like, look at this. So Nevada, they haven't reported any results yet, as far as I can tell. Okay. So, but then the question is, well, how many electoral votes do they have? Because it doesn't even show. Like, I can look at Pennsylvania, I can see, okay, if Trump wins that, which it looks like he probably will, hopefully, he'll pick up 19 electoral votes. But how much is Nevada worth? So then I go over here and I pulled up Nevada, and I can see that Nevada has 6 electoral votes. So whoever wins, Nevada will get 6 votes. The thing is, though, I don't think Trump needs Nevada. Trump's at 230. This map is it's delayed compared to what we just watched from from NBC. So according to NBC, Trump just got Georgia. So we can add 16 points here. So Trump's really at 246. If Trump gets PA, he's going to be at, what is that, 265? At 265, Trump only needs 5 points to win. Minnesota is looking like Kamala Harris may take that one. But Wisconsin looks like Trump might take this one. 82% reporting, and 51% is Trump, 47% is Kamala Harris. He's ahead by about 4%. That's a good gap. I like that. He could win if he gets Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, in addition to which Georgia, looks like Georgia he's already gotten. If he gets Michigan, that's 15 electoral votes. So if he gets, so let this Georgia count. That puts him at 246. PA, if he gets PA, which it looks like he'll get, that puts him at 265. Then all he has to do is get one of these two states. Anyone. And if he gets both, then he just destroys her. If he just gets one of those plus Pennsylvania and Georgia, he wins. If he gets Arizona plus Georgia and PA. So it's like Trump looks like he's got Georgia. They just reported Georgia. It's still a prediction. It's not like Georgia's done reporting, but it's just that some news stations come out and are confident to say that they're projecting a winner at, 90 something percent reporting, right? So you just got to keep that in mind. But it looks like Trump's going to take Georgia. If he gets Georgia, PA, look, he can get Arizona too. Well, this is very close. I wouldn't even be confident to call that. Especially, look, Trump's only ahead by 0.8%, and only 51% has reported. So not only is he not ahead by that much, but you got half the state that didn't finish counting the votes. So I wouldn't even say anything on that one yet. But 11 electoral votes, even if Kamala took that puts her at 220. Kamala would have to get Arizona, that puts her at 220. That puts her at 221. Kamala would have to get Nevada, that puts her at +6. That would be 227. She'd also have to get Minnesota, that's 10 points. That puts her at 237. She'd have to somehow overcome Trump in one, like Wisconsin, overcome him. That would put her at 247. She'd have to overtake Trump in Michigan. That puts her at 262. Then she'd have to get PA. Like, I don't see Kamala winning this one based on this map here. I'm not trying to get ahead of myself. I'm not trying to hype you guys up. But just looking at the numbers and the momentum here and the values of these electoral votes per state, it looks like Kamala Harris may actually wet the bed, and I'm okay with that as long as it's she better not. She ain't gonna be in my bed, so she can wet her own bed. All right, let's see what these folks saying here.
Ask you about the blue wall, Rich. So as we look at our map here, the blue wall, that's something that everybody's been discussing ad nauseum. Of course, the blue wall states are Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Ever since 1992, these three states, they have voted as a unit. Most of the time, they voted blue. In 2016, though, they voted red. Why do these three states tend to vote as a unit? Is there any understanding?
Yes, and they're very similar, although Pennsylvania is not a Midwest state. It's more of a Northeastern state. Michigan, Wisconsin, of course, are both Midwestern states. But there are a lot of those with what's a very important constituency, and those are white blue-collar voters. Many of them are traditionally Democrats. Many of them were Reagan Democrats, but they came back to the Democratic Party, voted for Clinton twice, voted for Barack Obama twice, and then they moved over to Donald Trump. And I think part of that is trade agreements like NAFTA, for example, disproportionately had an effect on some of these counties and some of these parts of these states. As a result, there's been a lot of job losses, and whether it's right or wrong, they blamed it on trade agreements. And those trade agreements essentially had bipartisan support. NAFTA, for example, had Bill Clinton signing it with Bob Dole, Newt Gingrich, Bob Michel in the House and Senate, respectively, getting it through. A lot of Republicans were kind of free trade, laissez-faire Republicans. It didn't really go very well. It didn't bode well in these parts of the country. Now that you have Donald Trump, and that Donald Trump has gone to the left essentially of the vice president of the Democratic Party on trade, talking about tariffs, a lot of traditional Democrats, independents, conservative Democrats went over and they voted for Donald Trump the first time, and you're seeing that again. It's a problem Democrats have. It's something when Bernie Sanders ran in 2016, he also took very similar positions on issues like trade. And the other thing is that the Republicans do not have the traditional kind of anti-labor rhetoric. For example, J.D. Vance is somebody who is opposed to the idea of right to work laws. They've been trying to become more and more populist and more friendly to the workers to that respect. And I think that is certainly helping them and boding well in trying to unlock that what really was a hammerlock the Democrats had from 1992 to 2016.
All right, very, very good. I do want to ask you more about Trump and the movement that is behind him. And I want to put up several of these posts here on social media. This one saying there is still no sign of Harris at a rapidly thinning watch party at Howard University, her alma mater. She resumed to a nearly deserted campus if she does not appear soon. And that is in contrast to what we're seeing now at the Donald Trump party. And I believe we have a post there of him arriving at this Mar-a-Lago post, as you can see from the New York Post, saying Donald Trump arrived at Mar-a-Lago election night party there with some of his supporters as well. And Rich, I do want to ask you about something else that was said in that post, reporting from Jackie Heinrich, talking about the fact that
Kamala Harris has abandoned her own watch party.
Counties where he should be losing by larger margins in Pennsylvania and Michigan. What do we make of that, where Trump is, his numbers are higher than expected in some of the counties there from the Harris campaign and what they're expected? What does that mean?
You know, back in 1982, Tom Bradley, he was the mayor of Los Angeles, and he was running for governor of California. He was African-American, and he took polls, and the polls show he would win anywhere from 10 to 15 points. Then people went to the polls, and Tom Bradley landed up losing. And one of the arguments why he lost the race was the so-called Bradley effect, meaning that voters would tell pollsters that they were going to vote for him. And then when they actually got to the polls, they could not vote for an African-American. There are other factors as well. For example, Jerry Brown was running for Senate, and his campaign tended to flounder toward the end, and that had a disproportionate effect on Bradley. What I'm saying here is essentially that there might be voters in the suburbs of places like Philadelphia who tell pollsters, because they don't know who the pollster is, it's perhaps not politically correct to say you supported Trump. This is all speculation here, but they could be telling pollsters that they'll vote for Donald, that they're not going to vote for Donald Trump. But once they go in there, the Australian ballot, the secret ballot, if you will, they land up actually voting for Donald Trump. So that's one scenario. The other scenario is that Donald Trump's effort, they might just have a better get out the vote effort, and they might have just had a better ground game, and perhaps that ground game was kind of underappreciated, and now they're seeing the fruits of their labor.
Let's
Wow.
talk a little bit about Georgia. This is one state, Rich, that we've been focusing in on. And Georgia, it's interesting. Georgia right now has 93% of the votes counted right now. Trump has about a little bit over a 2-point lead over Harris. You've been following races so closely for so long, and you don't work for the Associated Press. That's who's calling these races for us. But when you look at these figures, what do you say about Harris's chances in the Peach State?
It looks very dim. I mean, we don't know obviously
Ooh,
until
she
we
said
get
it looks very
100%
dim.
of turnout. It's obviously very close, but perhaps she did not maximize the votes that she could get in places like Fulton County. It's interesting because her strategy. She actually spent 2 days on the campaign trail just riding through Southwest Georgia, rural parts of Georgia, some of whom were traditionally Republican areas, to try to minimize the damage that they could have in those areas. It looks like it really was for naught. It didn't really have necessarily the effect that they thought it would. They also employed Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton went to many parts of southern Georgia, traditionally culturally conservative, the types of people similar to those that Bill Clinton won over in 1992 when he actually won the state. He went out and tried to get those. It looks like despite what Barack Obama did, despite what Bill Clinton did, despite what Harris did, and despite what Tim Walz did, they seem to be treading water right now. And if they lose Georgia, they certainly would need to take just about all 3 of those states. But Georgia's a very interesting state. Certainly, it has some very Democratic areas right around Atlanta. You have to maximize your turnout, as well as some of the African American areas toward the southeastern part of the southwestern part of the state.
Well, the thing is, guys, the votes, they're not getting any more votes in for Georgia. They're done for the day. So ain't no more black people gonna turn out. Ain't no, regardless of what the race is, they're not turning out. So count them up, guys. Let's see where we're at. It is what it is. Trump won Georgia. Mary Shea. Trump won Georgia. I don't know if it's a red wave entirely, but it might be. Kevin Barrett says, I live in Massachusetts and I'm starting to hear fireworks going off outside. Does anybody have any fireworks ready for celebrations? I'm just saying, I'm not, like I said, I ain't trying to hype anybody up. I'm just saying it might be a Trump victory, guys. Guys, go ahead and type in Trump victory. Trump wins. Get the good karma going. Get the good karma. And if you haven't already, please tap the like button. Appreciate you guys. I'm getting so sleepy. What time is it where you guys at? Because it's 12:53 a.m. for me. I'm about to just knock out in this chair. Y'all gonna hear me snore. I might snore tonight. I don't normally snore, but I am tired. I've been up since 7, and I'm just tired. Trump is winning big. Trump wins. Trump victory. That's what I like to see. Oh, it's all about the Benjamins babies up in Pennsylvania. I didn't know that, sir. Well, I don't know if you're a sir or a ma'am, but I didn't know about that. Appreciate you. I'm definitely gonna get some rest soon. Oh. Oh, we definitely burning that midnight oil. That oil's lit. Black and Trump all the way. Appreciate you, TG. Trump won Georgia. It is time to stand up. Trump wins. Trump victory. Trump victory. All right, got a Texan in the house. Texas is an hour behind East Coast time. Wow, Kamala Harris knows she lost the election now. She wants to leave and hide her head like an ostrich. She can't face the people. Well, they just reported that they can't find Kamala Harris at her watch party. That says something to me. That definitely says something to me.
More protesters to the Democratic side. This time around, Vice President Harris has had the same very similar problem, trying to tell them that she's a little bit different from Joe Biden, and that she would favor some sort of a ceasefire. But certainly, you can see in the numbers that she's not doing as well as Joe Biden pre-Israel Gaza war.
All right, very good. Rich Rubino, thank you so much for joining us. Don't go anywhere. We're going to continue on covering all of the latest, but we do want to take a little bit of a break because we're monitoring all of these shots.
Ooh, check this out, guys.
Waving those flags, but as the night progressed and they watched the returns come in, no more waving flags. In fact, they asked for the television to be muted here with the returns, with the exception of Hawaii, Colorado, other places that Harris won. They turned them on and got cheers for that. Instead, they blasted music to try to sort of distract from the situation, try to give a little pick-me-up to the people here.
Ooh.
All right. Peter, thank you so much. I want to go over to Garrett Haake, who's at Trump headquarters in Florida, where it looks like the party is still going. And of course, the question is whether or not we will hear from the former president tonight.
Yeah, Savannah, Trump supporters reveling in the news that they are getting here in this ballroom just over the last half hour or so. Huge cheers in this room as the networks called Georgia for the former president, and a loud chorus of boos when Cedric Richmond took the stage in Washington to announce that Vice President Harris would not be speaking. There has been movement from Mar-a-Lago across the Intercoastal Waterway towards West Palm Beach of Trump supporters. The party there emptying out a lot of the folks he had been with. Governor Burgum, for example, other close Trump aides and allies making their way across the street. Still no sign of the former president here yet, Savannah.
Okay, thank you.
We've got another call
here we
to
go.
make here. I
Another
believe this is
projection.
the state of New Mexico. NBC News projecting that Kamala Harris will win
That's all right.
in New Mexico.
She could take New Mexico.
Here's the breakdown right now. You see the difference, 43,000.
You can take those little 5
of the
electoral
vote
votes.
in there, so very little left to count. Where does that bring us to in the road to 270? Donald Trump at 246. Harris now up to 194.
Let's go over to Tom Yamas, who's at the big board
Trump,
in Pennsylvania. You've got some
don't.
bellwether counties that are reporting in now.
Trump,
It's good news for Donald Trump.
Yeah, one in the east, one in the west. Let's start in the east. Northampton County. This is Easton, PA, right here, south central suburbs. 95% of the vote is in. Trump is there with 51%. Remember, Biden won this in 2020. So Trump able to flip that bellwether county. There's still some vote out, but it's unclear if Harris can catch up. Erie County.
Cassandra.
We haven't talked enough about Erie County tonight. This is one of those swing counties that we watch in Western PA. Biden won it in 2020. Tonight, Trump is on top. There's about 3,000 votes still left to be counted here. It's unclear. She's going to have to get all those votes if she wants to flip that county back blue. Let's go to the collar counties in Philadelphia. Let's talk about what we have here.
He
So we
says
wanna
even in the
compare
hoods in
2020 to see
Pennsylvania,
how
no
she's driving
Harris
out the
wall
vote.
signs. That's
Underperforming
interesting.
right now in Chester County. Still 20% of the vote is out there. Montgomery County, 86% of the vote is in. 62% for Biden. Again, 60%. She's underperforming there. We move down to Delco. 95% in, 62.9, slightly underperforming there. Philadelphia County, this is where she closed out her campaign with Lady Gaga and Oprah as well. There's still a lot of vote left to be counted, 20% or so. 81% was where Biden was at. She's at 78. And finally, Bucks County here. Trump has flipped this right now. There's still about 30% of the vote is out, 69%. He had 51. Biden did in 2020. Trump tonight with 50%. Still some vote to be counted there. But those aren't promising numbers in the collar counties right now. And the bellwethers, one in the east, one in the west, showing signs that Pennsylvania could turn red. Still a lot of vote out, guys. But this may be one of the reasons, and we don't know why Vice President Harris decided not to speak tonight, but this may be one of the reasons why the trend lines in Pennsylvania, from what we're seeing, if she doesn't win Pennsylvania, there is no longer a path for her.
Oh, wow.
And you're seeing some of these same patterns
that's a
in
big
other states
statement,
as
sir.
well.
Wisconsin and Michigan as well. We're starting to look at the counties there. We walked you through Michigan and Wisconsin. Still a lot of vote out in those two battleground states. But again, those trend lines that we're following, we're searching these maps to see if there's any positive signs for the Democrats. And I got to be honest with you, the more I go through these counties, through all the battleground states, more and more what you see in the rural counties, Trump is overperforming. Harris is underperforming in the counties she needs to win, guys.
Yo, I want
if she
to see
doesn't
the
win
Trump
Pennsylvania,
dance.
the other states don't matter. If he wins Pennsylvania, he goes to the White House.
Right.
Trump
Whether it's
about
a
to
call
do
or
that
not,
dance.
functionally is. I don't know. Is the minute if we call Pennsylvania tonight, does he get to 270? I think so. Yeah,
That's right.
That's it.
That's right.
So
That's right. It's ball
So,
game. I mean, that's
yes,
it. So.
and they're counting fast in Pennsylvania tonight as well. We're coming up on the top of the hour. I think we're going to have some predictions, some projections
we've
to
got one
make.
more.
Yes. But don't forget,
We are going to hear
there's
from
one
the
more state to go here.
of Alaska
Wow.
right now.
Yes.
And
I forgot about
NBC
Alaska.
News projecting that it's, well, not
Too
projecting
early to
at all.
call.
We're saying it is too early to call on Alaska.
Alaska
And here's where
only
the,
got 3
road to
electoral
270 stands
votes.
right now. Harris with 190.
That's not going to help her.
Gaining ground now.
Look at all that red.
246 as he looks forward to
Wow.
scoring 270 electoral votes.
Okay, let's see the battlegrounds. Pennsylvania, we just discussed it. Too close to call right now with 92% of the vote
92%
in.
is
Same story
in now.
Michigan, but we've been discussing how some of the trend lines are not positive for the vice president tonight. Michigan too close to call. Minnesota still too close to call at this hour. Of course, that's the home state of Governor Tim Walz, but too close to call right now with the what we have in here. Arizona,
I don't
too
even want to
early
see
call,
Tim Walz's
and
crazy face
Wisconsin
anymore. How
too
about y'all?
Close to call. So I think, Tom, you've got Wisconsin.
Yeah.
We'll give you a chance to do the bow and the wow counties again. This is
Bow, wow, wow,
late.
yippee, yo, yippee, yay. Okay, Madison, this is Dane County. For Democrats right now, she's doing just fine here. 75% is where Biden was in 2020. With 95% of the vote, and she's at 75%. That's fine for her. Milwaukee, we're going to be waiting on the biggest city and the biggest county in
Yeah, I want
Wisconsin
to see
for
Tampon
a few
Tim's
more
crazy
hours, I would
face.
say, maybe more than that. She's at 66%, but again, 40% of the vote in Milwaukee is not in. This is a big Democratic county, so maybe she can run her numbers up there. But then when we look at the wow counties here, Ozaki, this is the O in the wow, 81%. Trump was at 55.2. He's almost matching where he was 4 years ago. Let's go over to Washington County, 68, overperforming there. Let's go down to Waukesha.
Waukesha.
Slightly underperforming, still some of the votes out there. But these two counties just south of Milwaukee, they're still part of the Milwaukee media market. Racine, 51%. He's overperforming there, but still half the vote is out there. And then Kenosha, 95% in, overperforming there as well. These are counties that were blue under Obama.
I just
Trump was
can't
able to
even
flip them
understand
over
why
and then hold them
anybody
as
would
well.
want
We can go to the battle
Waltz
counties now. This is around Green
in
Bay.
the damn White House.
56% Trump
That guy's just a
overperforming there.
weirdo.
We'll come down. Sorry, let me go over here to Winnebago. 50 again, overperforming. And we go to
Greg
Allegheny.
Cardone is for
again,
Trump
slightly
2024.
overperforming, guys.
True.
So as we study this map, let me go
Uncle
to some of the
G.
Democratic strongholds, see how she's doing. La Crosse, 95%. So look, it's a slight drop, but again, when we're talking about a margin of 20,000 votes, that's what it was in 2016 and 2020. You want to be on top. You want to be overperforming everywhere you look. She's about at the same mark, slightly higher, but not by much in Eau Claire.
I just hope they don't come
And
up
then
with
I know
some way
we
to
were
steal
watching
these
Stock.
votes at
This
the
is one of
end.
those bellwethers. 50%. Matching Biden 4 years ago, 95% of the vote is in. And we'll look at Dorr. That's when we're watching. She's on top, but only by about 466 votes. It's unclear if he'll catch her. She may take Door County. It's still unclear in Wisconsin what's going to happen, guys.
All right, well, back with our panel now, including our guest, Jim Messina, former White House Deputy Chief of Staff under President Obama. Mark Lauder remains with us. He was part of the 2020 campaign for Donald Trump. Great to have you both here. Jim, when you see those trends that Tom has been walking through, and there's a consistent of underperformance, what does that tell you about the Harris campaign?
Well, the county that Tom just walked through that really scared me the most, I ran President Obama's campaign, and I was obsessed with Bucks County in Pennsylvania. Where Bucks County goes, we go. And we spent more time and resources there in the say to folks, hey, we have a problem here. The other thing is there just may not be enough turnout in Philly to get there. And I've spent my entire adult life waiting for Philly to come in. I just have anger. I hate the Eagles.
All right, relax.
Exactly. But every 4 years we're having this discussion. Usually it's enough. 6 out of the last 7 elections, Democrats have won Pennsylvania. Tonight, we're not sure there's enough out there.
But we were having the discussion several times this evening about, has there been a failure to recognize that the electorate is changing, that everything you think you may have known doesn't represent what we see today?
Well, what those numbers show me tonight is Democrats have a rural problem. We are absolutely bleeding votes in historic numbers. Barack Obama did very well in rural America. It started with Hillary. Biden did a little bit better. But when you look at the numbers, what's happening tonight, the gender gap is there. Women are performing in the suburbs. That's not the problem. The problem is we're just doing 2 to 4 points worse in rural, and we're not getting the big turnout in the cities because we're bleeding some of the young voters you guys have been talking about.
But also, Donald Trump keeps finding more voters in these rural areas. I mean, I think there's, you often hear in these political shows that you all host, you hear about the ceiling that Donald Trump has. Oh, he can't get over 48. He can't get over 49%. He's found more voters, and we're seeing it tonight when he's overperforming in some of these ruby red rural districts.
Which, by the way, for the third time you run for president, that just never happens. And I really do think that his campaign has figured out a way to do this and really target some of these demographics. Obviously, the young white male was the right thing to do. Getting into minority communities was the right thing to do. Democrats need an entire autopsy if it goes the way it looks like to say, what do we need to do here?
But does Trump transcend politics as we know it? I mean, that he was able to be as successful as he had by sticking his finger in the eye of the political establishment, of going where no other candidate could or had gone before.
What is true is Donald Trump has always been underestimated by Democrats
Ooh,
and has
true.
always figured out a way to juice turnout in ways that we thought were both abhorrent and didn't make sense to Democrats, but clearly has worked tonight. And this is that was a story of 2016, and it is a story of tonight.
You know what's interesting to me? I'm thinking back to the Republican National Convention when we were all sitting there and Hulk Hogan came and ripped off his shirt in sort of that moment of sort of super masculinity. And one of the conversations that we had at the time was about this, and it just, as its name, so-called bro vote, right? The young male voter. And the Trump strategy all along had been supercharge the base, boost that turnout, crank it up big time, get those so-called low propensity voters. People, listen, young guys typically don't show up to vote all the time, and they typically don't show up to vote consistently.
True.
I will tell you that the Trump campaign has, for a bit now, been feeling good about being able to get those low propensity, those people who don't typically vote out to the polls, specifically with young.
What's so interesting, because we heard
Got my butt
anecdotally
out
again
there.
from some of our correspondents about frat houses, fraternity brothers getting really into voting for Donald Trump. So I don't know if this is we call it the bro wall. Is that somehow Donald Trump has gotten these low propensity young male voters to come out and vote for him.
It is the hardest demographic in American politics. Males under 30 to turn out. They're the lowest turning out segment. I've spent hours on your show, you and I, talking about running up the numbers with women. And, the Harris campaign did some of that tonight. The Trump campaign decided, let's just give her that and let's go grow our electorate differently. And it looks like tonight that worked.
We've got another result on one of the abortion referenda. But let's go to Laura Jarrett in the newsroom. Laura, what do you have?
Yeah, Lester, this was another ballot measure, this one in Arizona, where overwhelmingly by a vote of 62%, that ballot amendment has now passed. Again, this would be a constitutional amendment that would enshrine a right to an abortion up to the point of viability, which is roughly 24 weeks of pregnancy. Obviously a big difference in this battleground state, where currently it's a 15-week restriction on the right to abortion. So a big difference there. Again, we haven't yet made a projection on the ultimate race for president in that state. But again, the ballot amendment we can project has passed there, Lester.
All right, Laura, thanks very much.
And it's interesting on that front. There's also another ballot initiative in Arizona that has to do with immigration. And the thinking was that maybe that would turn out, if people were going to turn out based on this abortion ballot initiative, maybe they would also turn out based on the immigration ballot initiative. If those
I think people want to get America back. That's the bottom line here.
Quote unquote ticket splitters or ballot initiative splitters, people who would back former President Trump in Arizona, but also back this ballot initiative that, as Laura reports, has just passed.
One of the things that I think is so interesting is we're talking about expanding the amount of voters who came out to vote for Donald Trump is this decision that he made not to campaign with Nikki Haley. And a lot of people thought, oh, that's going to be a big misstep. To your point, Jim, it was his way of calculating, I'm going to focus on driving out the mail vote, because a lot of people thought, boy, that's a risky strategy. Why wouldn't you have Nikki Haley?
But he also never made any overtures to Nikki Haley voters.
Right.
When Nikki Haley dropped out of the race, there was never a sense of, here's an olive branch coming to my tent.
But there were a million people that voted for Nikki Haley in battleground states. And I mean, that's a real gutsy move to say, you know what, I'm not interested.
But the true answer is you could have done both. Like he could have done both. Like a good presidential campaign usually would. In a race where 70% of Americans say we're on the wrong track, this race was really close because Donald Trump couldn't ever grow his vote past these young voters we're talking about. Had he been able to do both those things, to your point, 1 million people voted. They were just sitting out there. Remember Nikki on one of your shows this week saying, no one's called me, no one's asked.
Shoot, I mean, Donald Trump could have did better if y'all wasn't hemming him up with all these fake lawsuits, wasting a ridiculous amount of time with that nonsense. But I want to give you guys a quick update. Let's look at the map here. Did y'all notice something? Did y'all notice? Anybody notice what happened with this map here? This map now shows 247. It was showing 230. So Trump is within 23 points of hitting the wonderful 270 electoral votes, guys. Just want to give you guys a quick update. If you notice, Georgia is now red, 94% reporting. Trump sitting with a good hefty 2.5% lead on that one. That looks pretty good to me. Pennsylvania is now at 90% reporting. And look at that, guys. Trump is ahead by about 2.4%. No, Trump's ahead by 3.4% on Pennsylvania. He's even got a bigger margin on Pennsylvania. I'm starting to feel okay. I'm not saying we're there. I'm just saying starting to feel okay. And I'm tired as hell. So I appreciate you guys' super chats. Thank you guys for the coffees and everything. You guys are amazing. Thanks for rocking with me. Thanks for hitting the like button and all that goodness. Okay. So Ponce says Pennsylvania is going to call it by 2 a.m. So that's, assuming you're right, Ponce, that's 48 minutes from now. Wow. This is big. I'm trying, Zully. I'm about to go get a pack of toothpicks and put one in each of my eyes to keep these jokers open. I'm about to fall out. I'm so tired. I'm tired. I'm trying to hold it. I'm trying to hold it together. Let me refresh this. All right. We're still 210, 247. All right. Has anybody found Kamala Harris yet? Anybody find Kamala Harris? She's like not available.
Part of some comments that someone gave to me when I interviewed them after they voted, or around voting, I should say, in Dearborn over the weekend. And he said that as it comes to both major party candidates, he hopes that they will, quote, recognize that we don't have these people in our pockets. My vote is up for grabs. It's a wake-up call. And it certainly seems at this point that the positions of both major party candidates, or the lack thereof of a reach out in the way that some people wanted, may be influencing the vote here. And again, in a state that was so razor thin back in 2016, only around 10,000 vote margin in favor of former President Trump. We'll see if this could be the difference maker in the state with 15 electoral votes on the ground.
Election
All right,
alert.
Jesse,
What they
thank
talking
you.
about?
We've got an alert here. This is Nevada,
Okay.
moving from too
Oh.
early to call to too close to call, and they're counting fast. They're 70% of the vote in.
Wow.
Too close to call in the western battleground of Nevada. And Tom, let's zero in on what you're seeing there.
Yeah, some interesting things happening in the Silver State. If the trend is your friend in Las Vegas, the trend is your friend if you're a Republican tonight. Here's
Wow.
why. Look, a lot of the vote is still out in Clark County.
Wow.
There's still about 23% of the vote that's out in Clark County. But this margin right here at this point in the night is way too close. This is how Clark County, Vegas ended up 4 years ago. You can see it was almost a 10-point split here. It was a 10-point split there. And now we're talking about 2 percentage points tonight in Clark County. Again, a lot of the vote is out. That vote could come in and those numbers could change. Reno, Washoe County, more reflective of the entire state vote. This is the battleground county. Biden won this in
that's
2020.
close.
Tonight, Trump is on top. Still, a lot of the vote is out. He's only on top by about 200 votes, so not much to say there. But what we can point out in the Trump counties, like Elko County here, 64% in. Trump is overperforming tonight. He was at 76. He's almost at 80% right now. And Democrats aren't going to find votes here. I mean, these numbers aren't going to swing a lot in the Democrats' way. This is Trump country here in the middle of Nevada. Douglas County is another, I should say right down here, Douglas County. This is another Trump barometer that we watch. Again, overperforming. 66% of the vote is in. He was at 63 in 2020. He's now at 66. But the big story for me right now, and a lot of the vote is out, Clark County. I mean, this is 3/4 of Nevada right here. If Democrats hit certain margins where they're 50,000 or 60,000 votes ahead of Republicans, Republicans will never catch up in Nevada. Again, there's a lot of vote that's still out. We can find out exactly how much is out. 223,000 votes. So still a lot out there. Democrats won't get all of those, but they'll get a large chunk. Again, this is still a little too close this early in the night. Guys?
I'm still
All
not
right, Tom,
worried because
thanks very
Nevada's
much.
only
We'll go
worth
after
like
Steve
6
Patterson.
electoral votes anyway.
He is in Reno, Nevada, where they had long lines into the night. How are things
I don't
going
really
there
care
now?
that much. It's like nice to have, but
You know,
don't
Lester,
really matter.
really an experience, a process that is sort of winding down in most counties across the country is only just spooling up here in Nevada. As you mentioned, voting really ended just a few minutes ago with some of these counties sort of ending the process. People were still in line hours after polls closed. And so the count couldn't really start until that happened, which is why Tom Llamas reporting, obviously, that it's still too close to call, too early to call at this point. Several counties still need returns to come back. It is still very early on in the process, but we saw almost immediately Republicans sort of jumping out to this early ballot lead when it came to turnout. That was sort of the reading
That
on
was
the
big,
wall
y'all.
that I think a lot of folks
That
had.
early
And
voting
specifically
turnout from
in those
Republicans,
counties
yo.
in which, Tom Llamas was pointing out that are red, they're going to stay red. This sort of the math doesn't change in those areas. There's really only 2 population centers in this state, which is Washoe and which is Clark, Vegas and Reno. If she doesn't build up a big enough firewall that we see these returns happen over the next few hours, then it's going to be very tough for Democrats to make up that ground. I spoke to both campaigns. They both feel like they still have a good shot. Obviously, Democrats and Republicans both aiming for another subgroup here, nonpartisan voters. It is a huge, huge segment of the electorate here in Nevada. It is larger than Republicans, larger than Democrats. Of course, they all have their opinions about which way they break, different leanings. And I think both campaigns feel like they're seizing on that. They feel like they know their voters in that group, but that's what makes it so
Thanks, Debbie.
hard to read in this state. Which
Appreciate
way
the
are these
update.
nonpartisan voters going? And I
Debbie
think that's
says
sort of what we're gonna be
Republicans
focused
just got
on
the Senate.
within the next few hours. It may not be until 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock tonight before we start seeing legitimate, solid returns that'll tell us one way or another how the state is going to go.
All right, Steve, thanks very much.
That's mountain time too, by the way.
All right, Hans.
So even later here on
Hans
the East
says,
Coast, let's go to Garrett Haake.
let's
He
go
is
get
at
pumped.
Trump
Let's go
headquarters,
do
in
some
West
jumping
Palm.
jacks.
Any word on whether we will hear from the former
Yeah, I'm
president?
gonna do some jumping jacks.
We will, Savannah, and soon, I'm told by a campaign official, Donald Trump is on his way across from Mar-a-Lago to here in West Palm Beach, and he is expected to speak soon. Now, what soon means is a little bit of a open to interpretation, but Trump himself made it very clear earlier today, he does not have a lot of patience with this vote counting
All right,
process.
that should give me like
He
another
wants this
5
to be
minutes
over tonight. He thought
of
earlier
energy.
today it would be over tonight. It was his desire to speak tonight. Now you see that picture breaking up a little bit as he makes his way across the bridge to West Palm Beach. This ballroom is full. Secret Service starting to kind of close the doors, urge people to get in. They're cranking up the music, Savannah. I do not think it will be long until we hear from former President Trump.
And that will be an interesting situation because if assuming the status quo exists, he will not have been called as the next president.
Well, we will recall that he declared victory in 2020 when in fact he lost. So we'll see what his verbiage is here. What are you going to say?
I was going to say, I've been speaking to some of his allies, and there's sort of this divide about how he should approach this night. And some of them are saying you should be very aggressive. You should get out there and claim victory if, in fact, you think that's where this is headed. Others are saying, look, let's just walk a very fine line. I'll be really curious to see what he says, because this election, unlike 2020, the numbers are on his side. And again, we still have a lot of votes that need to be counted, so we don't know what the ultimate conclusion is going to be. But it's
Man, I don't want no coffee because I actually do want to go to bed
He
soon.
declared victory. The race hadn't been
I don't want to be in that
one way
weird
or
state
the
of
other. He hadn't lost
tired
yet.
as hell
He
and
lost
can't
5
sleep.
minutes later.
You've got some new information, Garrett?
Well, Lester, I just want to add that Trump was asked about this earlier today, and I think we have two things from him and from
This
his
guy over
campaign.
here
First of
talking
all, his
about let's
campaign
do
has
some
made it very
push-ups
clear
too.
that
I
he
don't see you doing no
when
work.
they felt he was well on his way to 270 electoral votes. They were very clear that they didn't feel compelled to wait until the race had been called, but when they felt confident in his path, he would speak. And so I think that's what we're going to see now. Secondly, Trump was asked today what his message is going to be to the millions, tens of millions of people who will have voted for Kamala Harris if he speaks after a victory. Would he give a unifying message? Trump said that he would, but described this as a broken country and said it would be important to try to fix it. A unifying message has not been Trump's strength, candidly, across his political career. But he and his campaign are keenly aware of the expectations of this moment, especially if he speaks before the race is called. Lester.
All right, Garrett, thanks.
And stay with us. Our NBC News election coverage returns right after we take a quick break.
News lives.
All right, let's see where we at. Where we at, y'all?
News is more now than ever. This monster and
So looks like Kamala Harris picked up a couple points. She's at 214. Trump's at 247. I don't know what she just picked up, but she was at 210 a minute ago. So it's some state that only has 4 electoral votes. What state has 4? I wonder if she got like New Hampshire or something. I didn't even notice that tiny state there. New York's got 28 electoral votes. Wow, New York's big. New Mexico's had 5 electoral votes. I don't know what I don't know what state she must have picked up that gave her those 4 points. Arizona? No, Arizona's got 11 electoral votes. Hawaii. She probably, well, no, because it's weird because they got Hawaii in blue, even though it says 0% reporting, but that's the only state I can find that has 4 electoral votes. So somehow they just gave it to her. That's some bold dookie. I don't know what's up with that. I don't even know what's up with that. Okay, let me see what these guys talking about over here.
210 right now for this. So let's just continue on. I do want to give you just a contrast of what we saw just a little bit ago there in West Palm Beach, Florida at this convention center of what's coming up in just a little bit, but also what we heard from Howard University in Washington, D.C. is Cedric Richmond did make remarks to a crowd, telling the crowd there that Kamala Harris would not be making a speech tonight. Let's take you right now back out to this if you missed it, because it was very brief.
Kamala Harris didn't make a speech because she got that ass beat.
This Harris campaign. Let's listen into what he had to say just a little bit ago.
Good evening, Howard.
All right, I'm gonna try to wait to 270. I'm trying.
Good evening.
I'm trying, Jeanette.
I want to say good evening to all of the Harris campaign, the campaign family. Thank you for all that you
What
have
did you
done.
see? It just jumped Trump at 270. Please tell me where you're seeing that, Benjamin and Angela.
Promise of America.
Please let me know where you're seeing that.
We still have votes to count. We still have states that have not been called yet. We will continue overnight to fight to make sure that every vote is counted, that every voice has spoken. So you won't hear from the vice president tonight, but you will hear from her tomorrow. She will be back here tomorrow.
Oh, you're looking at Newsmax. All right, let me see what they're doing over there. Thank you.
Supporters, but to address the nation. So thank you. We believe in you. May God bless you. May God keep you. and go HU and go Harris. Thank you all.
That was a quick remarks there from Cedric Richmond there, the co-chair of the Harris campaign. Just a little bit ago, we wanted to bring you to those because it was only 90 seconds, a brief remarks saying that Kamala Harris would not be speaking to her supporters tonight there on this election eve. We also are expecting to hear from the former President Donald Trump in West Palm Beach, Florida. You can see the crowd already on their feet awaiting him to take the stage. And this
All right, I'll try to keep an eye on this one. I want to hear from Trump too, but let's look at Newsmax. Appreciate it, Benjamin and Angela, for putting me on. So it looks like Newsmax already has Trump winning with 270 electoral votes. So this is Newsmax, guys. And this is rather interesting. So it's basically saying Donald Trump's going to take Pennsylvania. And it's a good chance that Trump would take Wisconsin and Michigan. So we're going to see. We're definitely going to see. They also seem to think that Trump might take Arizona and Nevada, but I think Nevada is possible, but Arizona looks way too close. Nevada, he's at 51%. That's interesting. That's going to be real interesting, yo. All right. Let me see if Trump's ready to get on stage yet. Let's see. Where did I see? I thought Trump. Let me see. Where's Trump?
Not great news for Democrats right now, but it's still a lot of the vote is out in Las Vegas, and that's what's going to really decide this election, Savannah.
Yeah, and we're waiting for the Montana Senate seat as well, where John Tester is looking to hold on and check in on that, report back. Oh, no, look, you're so fast on that board now. What do you say?
Tim Sheehy, look at this. The incumbent John Tester is down. This was the most expensive Senate race, I think maybe ever in Montana here. This was a huge fight, and we only have about 30% in, so we can't really draw too much from here. But we can see how, this is a very red state. Trump was at 56. He's performing at 51 right now, so he's sort of underperforming. But look, it's still early in the night. There's still 70% of the vote that's out in Montana. But this is one we're going to be watching closer as we.
Oh, check this out, guys. Look at this.
Yes, well, Nevada is a state. It only has 6 electoral votes. It's really the smallest of the showdown states. It's a state that if you go back to last weekend, last Friday, for example, Vice President Harris was in Reno. Donald Trump was in North Las Vegas. The state that you have Clark County, which is 70% of the state, which includes Las Vegas, which tends to be more Democrat. And then you have Reno and Carson City kind of up on the edge, kind of on the northwestern part of the state.
Basically, they were just showing Donald Trump was ahead by like 3 or 4 points for Nevada.
But if you can really maximize yourself in some of those kind of rural areas for the Republican, it can very much benefit. It can very much benefit the Republican presidential candidate. But I think this certainly does not bode well for President Harris in that seat. Obviously, when you're there the weekend before the election and you're in a place like Reno, it's a state that you expect to win, and it's a state that you believe is critical to your political future.
Harris has already abandoned her supporters, and she didn't even lose yet. Oh, wow.
I do want to put up just the other one because I think
I love that statement.
Austin talked about it where it was 23 and
nice one, Donald.
Just a little bit ago it's only 24, but this was the one vote, the one electoral vote that he did get out of Nebraska District 1 there, Donald Trump winning that one, as it's a little bit of an interesting one with Nebraska and Maine as well. And as you're looking at this, the electoral college, the race to 270. You talk about Pennsylvania being so very, very important. What other states could be you're focusing on over this next day to get him to that 270 mark?
I think it's those blue wall states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. They were all states from 1992 through 2016, went for the Democrat every single year, including John Kerry in 2004 when he lost. Donald Trump was able to upend his opponent Hillary Clinton in 2016 in all 3 of those states. It's very hard to see a scenario if he can win. If he can win 2 of those states, I think he's going to be elected as president of the United States.
Wow.
And the polls right now are showing him a couple of points ahead. So It's not impossible for Vice President Harris to win here, but she really needs she really needs almost an inside straight to be victorious here.
Wow.
Rich, thank you very much for all the informative. I mean, the always informative Rich Rubino, one of my favorite people to talk politics with. We appreciate you on this big night.
Thank you. I greatly enjoyed it.
All right. Thank you so much, Rich. We appreciate your time. As always, we'll let you sign off as well as we continue on. But we're going to hear soon enough from the former President Donald Trump coming up here in just a little bit there in West Palm Beach, Florida. Of course, we're following it very closely here on Live Now from Fox. A live picture there inside of this convention hall as well. So he will be soon to take the stage. Let's slide away for a quick 2-minute break. We'll be back after this.
Only he can fix. Somebody who, as we talk about rhetoric, just called Nancy Pelosi as crazy as a bed bug just recently, right? So let's just remember that is, I think, some of the tone. Now, we may see tonight him look to make I'm not even going to say the word pivot, but perhaps extend an olive branch. Maybe. I mean, listen, I don't have a crystal ball, but I do think there's a pattern of history.
To that point, I mean, remember after the horrific assassination attempt against him, the Republican National Convention, and all of the reporting, in fact, everything that he was saying was,
He himself said it.
He said it. Yes, he said, I am going to deliver a unifying speech. And it was for part of the speech, but then it quickly became a very familiar, almost speech that you would hear on the campaign trail.
Well, that's what he ran for, and is perhaps going to prevail on that very way of being. I don't know that he would have any incentive to change unless, he had felt in the moment some magnanimity towards.
I will make one bold prediction, though, Savannah.
Yeah.
I predict that he won't say that anybody cheated.
Well, remember, though, even after he won election in 2016, he still made unfounded claims of voter fraud. So win or lose, it is something that he has a pattern of doing.
I remember in days after the 2016 election, he and his staff summoned network anchors, executives for an off-the-record meeting at Trump Tower, and it was off the record, so I won't go deeply into it. But to say we were under the impression it was going to be a reset meeting, it was not.
Well, and that I think.
So you got chewed out?
Yeah, sure.
Sounds like it. I'm like, let me leave. I wasn't there.
Lines on that one.
Yes, we were kind of told what time it was.
Yeah.
Well, just to speak to that, I mean, again, we don't have to rehash all of it here, and we're still waiting for Pennsylvania to be called, but he is somebody who has called journalists the enemies of the people. Just at a rally recently, he talked about being surrounded by bulletproof glass, and that if somebody wanted to come after him in a attempted assassination again, they'd have to shoot through the media first, and he'd be okay with that. His campaign tried to suggest that's not what he said, but that is the kind of language that we have heard from him consistently.
And remember how he launched his campaign vowing retribution. And in recent weeks and days, we've heard him talk about his political rivals as being the enemy from within. His vice presidential nominee, J.D. Vance, has spent a lot of time answering for that in interviews that he has done.
Well, just to bring everybody up to date, 1:30 on the East Coast, and we are awaiting Donald Trump, who's expected to speak at the Trump headquarters in West Palm Beach, Florida. Battlegrounds remain to be.
All right, guys. So let's see where we at with the Associated Press poll. All right. So Trump still sitting at 247, Harris at 214 here. I don't see any movement here yet. But looking at Newsmax. Newsmax has Donald Trump at 270, guys. Trump's at 270 on Newsmax. CNN has their own polls. And you know how much CNN loves Donald Trump. They got Trump sitting at 246. I think it's interesting I don't know why there's such a huge variance with Kamala Harris and her electoral vote count across these different platforms. But nevertheless, Trump is ahead big time on CNN. But looks like Newsmax is already calling Donald Trump the president of the United States already at 270 points. That's what it looks like here. Wow. This is huge. This is huge, guys. I know you guys are excited. Let me see what they're saying here now.
after his victory. He appeared in the 2 a.m. hour.
Wow,
to
they're
make his
celebrating
remarks.
already
We are
at
in the
Trump
1 a.m.
headquarters.
hour,
Look at this,
and,
guys.
we saw that motorcade a bit earlier crossing the bridge in West Palm, but we don't have any timing as to when we may hear.
Well, we know we won't hit traffic because of the hour and also the motorcade, but we are expecting him. And we've been talking about, what tone he might strike. And also, I mean, Mark Lauder, you were there, you know him. Let's just pretend he listens to his advisors. What would you
All right,
advise him
we'll try to wait for
say
MSNBC to call it. That's cool.
I would outline what we have to get done. And first off, we have 74 days, if I'm going off my quick math, before you actually take the oath of office. So I would obviously want to get right to work. You would obviously praise your staff. Unlike what
California
you would
is
normally
jacked
do in a
up right now, and they still
traditional
voted for the
speech
same
this way,
people that
you
got
will
them
have
screwed
not
up
talked
to begin
your
with. It's
opponent,
unbelievable.
Unless something strange
what's wrong
happens
with them.
between now and then, and she calls, they reach out and call. So you're not going to be able to say anything along those lines. And then ultimately, I think, especially if it looks right now, you may not hold, but you're leading in the national popular vote. That's something that you have not done. It's something only one Republican president, has done this century. You have a mandate. And
what is the mandate? Because he didn't run to the center. I mean, he ran to the base, and the base, it seems poised to
It's all
elect
about
him.
that base,
So what would
that
the mandate
base.
be if you're him? Is it the mass deportation? Is it, the tariffs, for example? I mean, he's been very clear about his policies.
I think first and foremost, it'll be energy, the economy, extending the tax cuts, and then I think you will get into illegal immigration. I think you will get into and some of those other areas. But ultimately, I think that's first where you go. Also, will depend on if you have the House. If you have the House and the House comes with you on this, then you have obviously both chambers. You'll have unified control. And that changes a lot.
He will effectively be a one-term president. What does that mean in terms of how he would govern?
You have 8 months to get something done before they start running for re-election? No, I mean, in reality, you obviously you're going to have your 4 years, but as we both know, you get that 100 days, maybe that 6 months before Congress goes and starts acting in their interest for their re-election, their campaign interests. You're going to have what I assume would be a primary to be your successor, and then obviously the Democrats will have their primary.
Claire, how would you see that? How would you see that rolling out?
Well, I think it depends on whether or not the House is controlled by the Democrats. Remember when Trump got elected last time, he had the House and the Senate. He had all three. And there was, he struggled. He got the tax cuts done. But that was really the only, he didn't repeal Obamacare. He didn't build the wall. He didn't do a lot of the things he had promised to do, even though he had all three houses. So I worry that if the Democrats get the House, then whatever he doesn't get done will be Hakeem Jeffries' fault. As opposed to his inability to produce on the promises he's made. But if we don't take the House, then I think he's got a tall order. And I think he's got to do the tariffs. And he doesn't need Congress for that. He can do the tariffs right away. I've been hearing from my friends that are in Europe. They're very worried about the lines of those countries being redrawn fairly quickly.
You mean Ukraine?
Yes, and more. Orban and other autocrats that now will feel this is a green light. I think NATO will be greatly diminished. I think our European allies will be very, very nervous. So that's another whole piece of this. So I think it really is important for us to know whether the Democrats take the House before we start speculating too much. And part of me, I want the Democrats to take the House because I think there'll be a check. On the other hand, they also will be a scapegoat.
Well, let's be clear. If the Republicans hold on to the House, they have the Senate. If they win the White House, you have an ideological 6-3 Supreme Court. You will have the Republicans in charge of every branch of government in this country.
And not to raise this specter, but it is possible that if Donald Trump wins another term, if that happens, and we have not called Pennsylvania or the race yet, so big ifs here, but if that happens, you could maybe see some court retirements if there is a Republican Senate, Republican House, Republican in the White House as well, and then the court could become even more conservative. Again, potentially, I don't want to go too far down that road. Let's see how the night shakes out, but since you brought it up, Savannah, just to throw that in.
Well, that brings us to Tom Yamas and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
We've been talking so much about those collar counties. I want to talk about the I-222 corridor, and I know we have some PA homies in the house tonight. I'm sorry if my highway is not exact, but it kind of cuts through here. And I want to talk about this because when we look at the counties and how Trump's doing here, this is where the Hispanics are. This is the Latino corridor, if you will, in Pennsylvania, because I want to show you how important this is. So when we start, we can start right here. We'll start in York County, overperforming in York County. As we move up, Lancaster, about even there. We'll keep going. Berks County here, overperforming again, almost all the votes in there. We go to Lehigh now. She's underperforming. Harris is underperforming from Biden. Trump is overperforming. And we finish over here in Northampton again, Easton, PA. Again, he flips this county, overperforming there. And then I want to show you the polls, guys, right? This was the exit poll that sort of, I don't want to say it surprised us, but this told us that the story was going to be different tonight. This is Trump support among Latino voters in Pennsylvania. Look at this number, 2020, 27%. In 2024, 41%. It was just not Latino voters. And again, I know this could change. These are early exit polls. So look at the breakdown here. White, 55, 57. But even black voters, he grew his margins there from 2020 to 2024. And again, that Latino margin, that spread right there. And I bring this up because we were talking a lot about that Madison Square Garden rally, that joke that was made about Puerto Rico and Puerto Ricans and how it would affect the race and how it would affect what happened in Pennsylvania. So far, we have not seen it have any tremendous effect. Again, we'll get all the data post-Thanksgiving and we'll be able to sort of figure all that out. But right now, it looks like it's not affecting those Latino counties in Pennsylvania. I do want to get a check-in on how the collar counties are doing around Philadelphia. And we'll, again, Biden's number, where Trump is. This is statewide. We're going to start in Chester County. Harris is underperforming, still about 15% of the vote left out there. Montgomery County here, again, underperforming. We come down here to Delco. 62%, 61%, almost about the same. But again, if you want to win Pennsylvania, you have to be at the same mark as Biden or higher. And then Philadelphia right now, this is not a great number for her. This is pretty bad. Again, 15% of the vote, more than 15% of the vote is still out there. So she could claw that back. And I don't want to forget Bucks County here. This is the big one tonight when we talk about the collar counties in Pennsylvania, because Democrats need to win this. They need to win all the collar counties. Biden at 51 in 2020. Tonight, Harris underwater at 48 and Trump up at 50. He may possibly flip Bucks County. 75% of the vote is in. Hallie Jackson's the Bucks County expert here, so I'll leave it to her.
No, correct me if I'm wrong. It was a Biden County in 2016 as well, right? By a slim margin.
It was
That's
a
right.
Clinton County.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
you're right.
I'm sorry, Democratic County, of course.
Yeah, but this is the only collar county. Yeah, Hallie, you're right. This is the only collar county Republicans thought they had a chance in, or could at least claw back some of the vote, maybe peel back some of the Democratic support. And tonight it looks like it's happened. We're still waiting on a quarter of the vote. But that's a strong, when you see a number like that in Bucks County, you know it's going to be a tough night for Democrats.
And as we talk about the education gap here in this race, I will just point out that Bucks County does have a bigger education gap than you see in some of those other Philadelphia suburban counties as well. You have an area like Lower Bucks, you see more of sort of that blue collar voter there.
And the fact that Erie County also has gone for Trump, that's a huge bellwether in the state. And that's why Democrats who are texting me are saying all of these signs are just not headed in the right
Well, I
direction.
mean, Joe Biden, of course, picked up, he did better, in some of those rural places. He, is sort of from Scranton or Scranton adjacent, grew up there, but then obviously went on to have Delaware as his home state. But I mean, he did better in some of these rural places that we're talking about.
Well, what was interesting is that when Biden won it, when Obama won it, he drew out a very large African-American population and vote in the Philadelphia area. Yes, did well in the collar counties, but Biden really won it because of the collar counties. And that's what made his win in Pennsylvania so different.
Everyone's speechless here. I guess it really is 1:40 in the morning, except for they're not speechless. They're cheering there at Trump headquarters
I think we can
at
go
West
there.
Palm. Yeah, I think we must be getting close to that moment with Donald Trump. It's motorcade. We saw it coming. So I think,
Yeah, Garrett Hake's
yeah.
there.
yeah, he's there. We can listen to him and hear what the crowd is hearing.
Yeah. Savannah, I can tell you right now, the anticipation far outpaces the available information about what Donald Trump will say and when he will say it. They're broadcasting another network in here, and we're getting a lot of cheers from a crowd who is anticipating a victory speech. I can tell you on the platform behind me, you probably can't quite see it, but the glass is up. The teleprompter glass is up for prepared remarks. But I think it's possible that part of the delay here may be that those remarks don't yet exist. Trump told reporters this morning after he voted that he hadn't written anything yet. He hadn't written a concession speech. He hadn't written a victory speech. He is something of a superstitious person, and it's possible he did not want to put anything on paper early, not knowing the results. For right now, I'm like tapping through my phone. We're reaching out to campaign sources, but I think part of the problem is Trump himself may not be entirely clear what message he wants to give to the country when he decides to step forward and give it. Savannah?
All right, Garrett, thank you. Let's go over to Peter Alexander at Harris headquarters, where they're shutting it down. Cedric Richmond had just came out a little earlier saying that we will not hear from Kamala Harris tonight, but we will tomorrow. Any further word there, Peter?
Right now at this hour,
Yeah, I think most accurate to say that we are shutting it down at this point, shy of 2 o'clock here. We're the only ones left, a matter of reporters here who are sort of bundling up their gear in anticipation of the vice president returning to Howard University, her alma mater, as we were told. I guess it's later today. She'll be speaking today, Wednesday, not just to her supporters, but to a national audience as well. Obviously, this thing isn't done yet, but certainly based on the expressions we saw, the information we're getting from those in and around the Harris campaign, it doesn't feel like a winning night for them, a successful campaign. We heard a funeral type atmosphere from those top donors who were gathered at a hotel not far from here. Kamala Harris never arrived at this location, not dissimilar to Hillary Clinton back in 2016 when it was one of her aides who came out and said she wouldn't be speaking, that she would deliver remarks the next day. Ultimately, it was then when she delivered a concession. So they're keeping close eyes on Pennsylvania. But the bottom line is, you know, there are key demographics and critical counties and crucial states
Peter,
where they're just underperforming.
Peter, I'll ask you to stand by right now. We have another call in Nebraska in the split electoral votes. NBC News projects that Donald Trump will win 4 of the 5. There's the difference. This is District 3. Donald Trump, the projected winner. And you can see 58% of the vote is in there.
And District 2 remains outstanding. That's the one, the Omaha adjacent district that usually goes blue and is expected to tonight as well. I think we await District 2. I think we just saw that.
And you can see Donald Trump drawing closer to the magic 270 that would put him over the top and hand him the White House once more.
Yeah, we await his comments. Stay with us. NBC News election night coverage continues right after this short break.
Smile, you found it. The feeling of finding psoriasis can't filter out the real you. So go ahead, live unfiltered with the one and only Sotyktu, a once daily pill for moderate to severe plaque psoriasis and the chance at clear or almost clear skin. It's like the feeling of finding you're so ready for your close-up, or finding you don't have to hide your skin, just your background. Once daily Sotyktu was proven better, getting more people clearer skin than the leading pill. Don't take if you're allergic to Sotyktu. Serious reactions can occur. Sotyktu can lower your ability to fight infections, including TB. Serious infections, cancers including lymphoma, muscle problems, and changes in certain labs have occurred. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, liver or kidney problems, high triglycerides, or had a vaccine or plan to. Sotyktu is a TYK2 inhibitor. TYK2 is part of the JAK family. It's not known if Sotyktu has the same risks as JAK inhibitors. Find what plaque psoriasis has been hiding. There's only one Sotyktu, so ask for it by name. So clearly you. Sotyktu.
University of Maryland Global Campus isn't just an innovative state school. It's a school for real life, one that values the successes you've already achieved. That's why at UMGC, you can earn up to
succeeded and brought him back to the White House.
47th president of the United States, former President Trump now defeats Vice President Kamala Harris, who entered this race just over 100 days ago. And for Democrats, they were projecting the possibility of running the table with battleground states. David Plouffe with the Democratic campaign of Harris campaign suggested that just yesterday. Now it is possible that Donald Trump runs the table with these states and builds on a big landslide electoral win. We don't know where the popular vote is going to finish out, but we do know that he will be going back to the White House, and with him, Brit Hume, will be a lot of changes because he will have been there once and will know what he wants to do.
You know, he often accounts for the fact that he had so much turnover in his first term, in his term as president. But he really know Washington, and he was new to this realm that he had come to win the presidency, and he promises us that Now he knows. Now he knows whom he wants to hire. Now he knows the kind of people he wants to have around him. A lot of people are saying that means a lot of very experienced people around Washington will be ruled out, and maybe they will. But it's going to be very interesting to see the kind of people he reaches out to and reaches out for in the days and weeks ahead as he builds his administration.
We're joined by Kayleigh McEnany, Trey Gowdy, and Katie Pavlich. Kayleigh, you've been part of the last administration. You've seen you can see the joy in all these people's faces. Think about the angst and the, all that this campaign has been through. And now there is the prospect of creating what you want to create in a second administration. Your thoughts, 30,000 feet of this win.
Indictments, 2 assassination attempts, an unlikely come from behind victory, and history is made tonight. This is a huge moment, particularly because this is a tectonic shift of the Republican Party. If all of this exit polling is true, you now have Black voters, Latino voters, young voters coming in a way that we haven't seen the party bring in a very long time, and that's due to former president, now soon to be current President Trump. And I just want to say this as we wait for him to come out. I remember having a conversation with Ivanka Trump in 2016 about his remarks. And before he went out to give those remarks, he had speech A and speech B. Speech A was a more boisterous Trumpian speech. Speech B was a speech full of unity. And he looked up, Ivanka said, saw the faces of crying Hillary voters. He ripped up the boisterous speech and said he wanted to heal the nation. And the first words he said were an appreciation for Hillary Clinton, for her service to our country. And then he said, now it is time for America to bind the wounds of division. And he said, we are a party of all races, creeds, and religions. That is more true tonight than it was 8 years ago. And I fully expect President Trump right now is maybe ripping up that more boisterous speech and preparing to unite the country.
It's an amazing message.
I hope Kayleigh's right. I hope you're right. And we're gonna get a chance to see here in a minute. Trey Gowdy said something on your show the other day about how one of the things that you hope also is they're a little more prepared this time. They've got a great transition team, and they're going to need it. And I hope that there are a lot of people who want to go in and be helpful.
Trey?
Yeah, I think his transition team has done a wonderful job vetting potential candidates. And to Kayleigh's point, I think a liberated Donald Trump, he's never going to be on the ballot again. This is his last term. I think, Harold, he will surprise his detractors. I think he will be not anything like what his detractors have described him as being now that he is liberated. If I'm wrong, you can hold me to that. But I think he will, a liberated Donald Trump is going to shock his detractors.
He has said that the assassination attempts had an impact on him. We saw him in many ways return to the very rough and tumble style that we've seen in Donald Trump towards the end of this. But now he will take the stage tonight as the next president of the United States, and he will not be able to run again. Yeah. And I think that is another liberating factor potentially for President Trump. Katie.
We'll never underestimate the power of unfinished business. This is a president who has caught lightning in a bottle twice, and the second time around, he now has a MAGA mandate. He will have a Senate that he can use to push through his cabinet appointees, who can work with him on legislation, who could potentially replace a number of justices on the Supreme Court.
He could build a wall.
He could build a wall. He has a working group in Washington, D.C. We'll see what happens with the House, but he also has been working very hard on his transition, get the right people around him. He talks about the lessons he's learned about the first time in the White House. So this is a mandate tonight for him. And I think you should get a lot of credit for doing the work on the ground, going to these states to pull these Senate candidates across the line with them.
What do you think the analysis is going to be? There's going to be a lot of time to digest all of this. We'll focus now on what the incoming president is going to say. What do you think the analysis is going to be on the Democratic Party and what went wrong?
I think it's going to be agonizing. I think it's going to take a little while for consensus to form about what the party needs to do next, or what it did wrong this time. It'll be grudging at first. One can certainly imagine that if the party were smart and shrewd political voices were heeded, that there'd be some major changes in their agenda and their approach in this. And you think of the issue sets that they tried to run on against this man that failed. They need to reconsider all of that. I think it'll take a while. Now, our colleague and friend Mark Halperin, who's been very astute this particular cycle, he thinks there's going to be blood in the streets and people are going to be hysterical. I hope not, but it could happen.
Danny?
I am really looking forward to reading some of the stories, probably with a lot of anonymous sources amongst Democrats with the recriminations, and it's going to be fast and furious. And you will have people saying that Joe Biden should have dropped out the day after, not dropped out, but said he was not running for re-election on the day after that midterm in 2022, and either endorsed her or said, let there be a primary, and Dr. Jill Biden, there will be thoughts about her. And I wonder how chilly that White House is going to be for the next 90 days as they try to figure it out.
And let me just say that as Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris will certify the election results on January 6th.
A lot of irony in that moment. Harold, your thoughts?
This is how our country is organized, and it's a great education, I think, for people who had very high passions in this race. There are Democrats who were fervently for Joe Biden. He performed poorly during a debate, and the party switched to Kamala Harris, and there was genuine excitement, I think, built over a period of time. And some of that excitement was an aversion and almost a dislike and a disdain for Donald Trump. But I hope it's a moment that we can all grow from, because if we don't, not in a selfish, partisan way, Democrats won't progress. And I don't think you can fly and soar as a great country unless you have both wings working together. And President Trump, tonight, I'm going to be interested in that tone. Kayla, I was reminded of your words, and reminded of what you said as you shared it. I remembered that story. And I hope and pray for the country tonight that President Trump, who has every right to be joyful, every right to celebrate, will give a speech with that tone tonight that in many ways could help him do all the things that he campaigned on in this campaign.
What does this mean for the Never Trumpers, who are Republicans, and the Lincoln Project people, and Bill Kristol, and people like that, who seem to abandon everything they ever previously believed in order to oppose Donald Trump?
Kellyanne?
We'll get to the Never Trumpers soon enough and the hundreds of millions of dollars wasted on them. Look, Donald Trump won this on policy and personality. I don't want to be remiss here. He is talking about energy independence, manufacturing, an economy where everybody is working, no new foreign wars, getting out of the entanglements we currently have, respecting and resourcing law enforcement, border patrol, military. And by the way, friends, we don't get those policies without that personality. What did we hear during the Republican primaries? I want Donald Trump's policies without his personality. Good luck with that. You don't get this strength and this resolve and this toughness. You don't get those policies without that. But I want to say this, it's on this phone that Huma Abedin placed the call 2:30 a.m. on November 9th, 2016. And on the other line was Secretary Clinton to concede the race to Donald Trump on my phone. I handed it to him and I said to Vice President-elect Mike Pence, make sure Hillary actually concedes. She did. And President Trump was gracious to them too. They came to the luncheon at the Capitol after the inauguration. The Obamas and the Clintons were there. I was there to see it myself. And then something just changed. The Washington Post said, let's impeach him at noon, 2 minutes after he's inaugurated. Melania wrote about this in her book. So Harold, I hear you. I hope everybody can unify. But I got to tell you, my friend, I think it starts with your party and not mine.
Fair enough.
They had this guy in a courtroom. He's not an indoor cat. I get it. They have him, and they had him in the courtroom. They have him impeached. They have him, and whether people think that was justified or not, now is a good time to respect the will of the people. Forget about us, the will of the people.
I agree with you. I'm just saying be a gracious winner and let's move the country
Yes,
forward.
but he
I agree. And I know you will. That was my only point.
I heard a gracious winner today when I talked to him. I really did. He's known for a while. I wrote a piece on FoxNews.com October 11th saying he's going to have a narrow landslide. I think he's felt that for a while, but he wanted to go and earn it.
And I even think the
And she
people
didn't
around
earn
him have to be gracious too. I think he will. I know
that's a
him as well as you.
different issue. Yeah, that's a different
People around him
question.
can be gracious as
That's a
well.
different question.
We can always hope.
No, that comes from the top.
Once more, I just want to say how much money was spent on this election. $15.9 billion with a bill.
Wow.
B, if you spent $1,000 a day for 2,740 years, that would be $1 billion. It was 16 times that. what has been spent on every race, presidency, the whole deal. $16 billion. And here we are.
What is that, a
And when
check
you
you can
look
write
at
to
the-
for every American? What did you
About
say?
$50. It's about $40.
My $50.
But I just want to say, every presidential race has a medium. You know, you go back to television, cable.
Yeah.
This was in some ways a podcast experience of a campaign. And those are free to go on podcasts. And you wonder how much of that money really needed to be spent when there's a lot of ways to reach people. But I think it's really interesting and something we'll be talking about a lot in terms of the reach.
Struck by the final,
and Musk and
the final ads where
they were excellent.
They talked about you know, making America great again, but then ending with the assassination attempt and that fist in the air, the iconic image, and the fight, fight, fight.
Absolutely.
Warrior
And
president.
it worked.
Yep.
Yeah, toughest son of a gun we ever saw. That was the last note we see in that ad. And I think, for whatever you think of the guy, you got to admire that.
Yeah.
I mean, the adversity he's faced, everything we've seen in other presidencies and other political figures who've gone through all kinds of trouble are pale in comparison to what he was put through. Maybe it's time for his enemies to stop it.
Not only that, but the
Can anyone hear me? Let me know in the comments.
The Energizer Bunny. Let's check in with Aisha Hosni, speaking of the Energizer Bunny, Trump headquarters in West Palm. Aisha, this has been a big night all night long. I'm sure it's really getting fever pitch now.
A big night, Brett and Martha, a long
Hey, thanks, Doreen.
for the former president, for all of us, the press.
They're celebrating, guys. They're celebrating.
Absolutely nuts when Fox News
I don't want to jump the gun, but it really does. Donald,
high-fiving each
it
other.
looks like
People were on FaceTime.
Donald Trump
I think they just couldn't believe it. That's
in the back.
and they didn't have to wait days and days. We are now waiting the former president to take came to Congress 3 years ago. The primary process, as Kellyanne Conway just said, he earned it state by state by state, and then came back to Washington in the spring.
Sorry, guys. I don't know what happened there just now.
Claimed the nomination. This is the greatest comeback that I've ever witnessed personally myself. And so I look forward to seeing what he says to the country here tonight and to his supporters. Back to you.
Aisha, thank you. The Harris team is now texting to say Vice President Harris will speak tomorrow, and that will be her response to the election results. That's all we have from the Harris team, which is really strange. I mean, from a PR perspective.
Wow.
Well, I also just think it's a shame because I remember when John Kerry did this to George W. Bush in 2004, and you work so hard, and I know that they're disappointed, but you should concede and let your opponent have their election night.
Yep.
And let everybody that's there at Trump, at Mar-a-Lago, where are they? They're in Palm Beach.
Wow.
At the convention center, like, let them have their moment without anyone. Like, I remember Andy Card had to come in and say, well, yes, we know we won, but we have to wait until John Kerry concedes, and then we all had to traipse back.
Man, Trump won. I don't even care. I know they can't officially say it yet. This is why I've been holding back, guys. They
She's not going to speak public.
If there's a phone call.
Trump has unofficially won. I just want to put it out there, guys. And the reason I've been holding back for saying this, I was waiting for it to be officially confirmed, but look at the mood, look at the percentage of votes that have come in. Trump is leading. I don't see how Kamala Harris could possibly come back at this point. I'm calling this a Trump win unofficially.
Could somehow come together, but it's going to be a red wall.
90 minutes before that, they were told to go to bed.
I got that text.
90 minutes before all of this, Jen O'Malley Dillon, the Harris campaign person, said everyone can go to bed and come back tomorrow. So
she didn't even address her own supporters. We want her to.
Yo, Kamala Harris abandoned her supporters, guys.
It just seems very.
They just turned her backs on all these people. Think about it. What kind of leader would she have been? She abandoned her supporters because she looks like she's going to lose. Like no one can even find her. She probably, how many, comment down below if you think Kamala Harris ran off crying somewhere because she lost. That's like not even cool. Like I'm not a Kamala Harris supporter, obviously, but do you think that's fair for the people who did support her to just like run off crying and then like just like ignore all their supporters? Like that's really not cool. She left all these people just, she's probably at a bar somewhere with Tim Walz getting slapped drunk.
A second chance this big in their lives and just puts it on the shelf like it's a trophy or a gold star. He's going to use that as a platform for good and undo some of these bad policies. And I think do even better. You know, these celebrities, these athletes, he's got job creators and innovators. He's got Elon Musk and Dana. He's got people who make stuff. Who people say, wow, there's an American success story, and he's going to bring them aboard.
So Vice President Harris has now encountered what is known as the Van Buren curse. It's the failure of the vice president to get to the presidency. Only two have done it, and that is Mark Van Buren in 1836 and George H.W. Bush in 1988. You know, the question is what the Republican Party looks like now. And Kayleigh, it's a multiracial party, to your point. It's working class, and maybe it's the future. I mean, it's Elon Musk. It is Joe Rogan and podcasts. It is, you know, there's an opportunity here on both parties to realign and change.
There are going to be a lot of conversations that go on to that end. Who is the next standard bearer for president? Is it J.D. Vance? Is he the one who picks up the torch after a 4-year legacy-defining term with the success that Kellyanne's describing? Is it J.D. Vance that picks it up? There's going to be a conversation about ground game. I mean,
guys, let's take a quick pause here. Take a look at this here. Look at this. The Hill. Trump wins presidency for a second time, completing improbable comeback. The Hill, guys. The former President Donald Trump is projected to win the presidency, securing a second term nearly 4 years after he left Washington under a cloud of ignominy. I don't even know what that means. With an uncertain political future, according to Decision Desk headquarters, DDHQ made the call after declaring Trump the projected winner of Pennsylvania and Alaska, which got him exactly 270 electoral votes. Trump defeated Vice President Kamala Harris in an election that saw a number of unexpected developments, a criminal trial. We don't even have to go into all this. I just think it is amazing that The Hill has already come out saying, calling Trump the winner. So that is pretty freaking dope, you guys. That's freaking dope. So, I mean, I think our prayers have been answered, guys. I think our prayers have been answered. I honestly wasn't sure about the future of America. You know what I mean? If Kamala Harris were to take this thing, all I can say is it would not be good. It would not be good for America. Yeah. So I'm pretty excited if you guys can't tell.
Democrat Party is going to go through in the next weeks and months, because this was a loss that I don't think anyone saw coming, not to this magnitude. So what does the autopsy look like if you're a Democrat? It's painful, but you have to have one. How did you lose, and how did you lose?
Appreciate you.
The easiest way to do it for them.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Joe Biden hadn't clung and hidden.
Hey guys, I'm gonna go ahead and drop off.
Clung to the nomination. And hidden his condition.
I'm gonna drop off. I might jump back on in like a couple minutes, but I'm gonna drop off. I think we got the answers we're looking for. I hope you guys enjoyed the coverage. Sorry, I was a little spotty here and there, but thank you so much for your.
That's the easiest.
Thank you so much, guys, for your support, for your patience. We did it. Pat yourselves on the backs, guys. I love you guys. You guys are freaking dope. You guys are the best. It's freaking 2 a.m. on, I don't even know what day it is. What is it? Tuesday? No, it's Wednesday now. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Thank you for your patience again, because like I said, it was my birthday and my wife took me out, so I couldn't hang out with you guys from like 7 p.m. But I got on as soon as I could. So we did it, guys. We have unofficially did it. I'm just waiting for Kamala Harris to come out and just admit it, but we did it. We did it. So anyway, hit the like button, subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next one.